Welcome to Best Infection,
The Next Generation.
a podcast where we've never failed a 9-inch charge and we've never gone second. I'm Tyler.
I'm Lucas.
And that's everybody, because Nick is out this week. And today is the day of all days, because today is the discussion day on some bigger picture stuff. We've been playing 10th edition for quite a while now. We've gone through a bunch of different iterations in terms of rules, in terms of metas. But that whole time, basically, we've had the same mission pack. And as that's been sort of a constant through the entirety of, the tournament scene this ed, and was something that we on the front end were so full-fledged excited about. It seemed like a nice time. As, things are dying down a little bit. Nothing too exciting going on this week. To reflect and see what we think of the mission pack and how 10th edition has been doing as a whole in terms of the game. So we're going to be doing that tonight, and to make it a little bit more exciting and fun, we're going to be doing it in the form of a couple of tier lists, which I know y'all are big fans of, so look forward to that. But before we jump into any of those juicy details, I got to check in with the singular boy. How we doing tonight, Lucas?
I'm doing great, man. It's been a good last week, and I'm very excited to be playing Orcs again this coming weekend, which will be really fun. I've been basically just playing Chaos Knights for the last 2-3 months or so, and it's going to be great to go back to my Orky roots and play some of them. So I've got a fun list cooked up. It's just a little RTT, local Portland RTT with a bunch of the boys, but a bunch of fairly good players will be there, so it'll be nice to kind of get some reps into some decent competition and see kind of where the faction is. Just get a little glimpse of that. So doing really well overall, and I'm excited for my tournament this weekend. How are you? I know finals finished up this last week, which was probably a big relief.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I am feeling fantastic. I'm feeling free. Finals are done for me. They're not done for all my students, though. So, work this week has been crazy, which was annoying because I was like, I'm done. Oh, no, I need to do stuff. So, kind of, mourning that aspect of childhood of having breaks as full free time. There's always so much more to do. But 40KY's been having a ton of fun. I've played 4 or 5 games in the last week, which is just very pleasant. Got to play into the new Necrons last night. Eight got to play into some Marines today. We got to play into your CSM, made a bit rep yesterday, which is fun. We can do commentary on that, by the way. That'll have to be remote. But that's all very exciting. Having a ton of fun with the Endless Swarm and with GSC, both with some more modern modifications to make it roll. But yeah, we're having a great time over here. Before we get into our big discussion here, I was wondering if you wanted to touch base a little bit on this orc situation. I know people are going to be pretty excited to hear about that. Anything you want to drop on the front end about the state of orcs and of Chaos Knights? What are we doing, bro?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it was inspired by some of the... most of it was honestly inspired by a lot of the recent success that some of my Team USA teammates have had playing orcs. I keep telling me that they're really good, and frankly, I'm still not convinced. But maybe I'm still thinking too much in terms of the singles mindset of just there are a couple matchups that feel pretty insurmountable. There are some boards, some kind of terrain setups that I feel like I'll just get to the board and feel like I can't win. Whereas I've never really felt that with Chaos Knights. I feel like I always have a shot or angles to play the game. So I think a lot of my pessimism was informed by the singles mindset, which was probably, part of the reason why there's a bit of a disconnect between what me and my teammates are feeling a little bit. The other one is I've just grown used to having a more dynamic army. Everything moves 12, everything shoots, everything punches. It's nice to be able to play all aspects of the game. And orcs, while they have a good shooting unit and they have some fast stuff, it really just is I try to be durable enough and hold on to a points lead type of army, which I don't have a lot of experience with, which is why, this kind of more elite orc style never really gelled with me. So I was really put on to giving this another idea when I went on the Art of War Down Under podcast to review the Orc Index with Adam Camilleri and Tyler Rousseau, which if you haven't watched part 1 of that, it is free on YouTube and on the Art of War podcast network. And then if you subscribe to Adam's Patreon, which you absolutely should, it's got a lot of great content on there. You can listen to part 2 where we dive into some listener questions and go into some more nitty gritty on orcs. But yeah, chatting with Tyler really put me on to the fact that, the orc list that I played at WTC was definitely good for what it was, but it might not be what's most optimal for orcs in singles right now. And going forward, especially post the September data slate when a bunch of things changed, knobs got cheaper, some of the massive amounts of stuff that we were cramming into the WTC list got more expensive, so you can't just run as much stuff. And that list was probably a little rough for singles anyway. So all of those kind of in conjunction really put me onto the idea of maybe I need to try something else. And it was really one particular moment where I was like, of course orcs are always taking fixed, because that was what I had done all throughout the summer and at WTC. I didn't even bring a tactical deck to Belgium, because every single game I was going to take Cleanse Homer, and if they give it a kill, I would take a kill instead of Cleanse. So I didn't even know like what was in the tactical deck until September. It was 3 months of just not caring at all about it. And when I said that orcs always take fixed, Tyler kind of scoffed at me and said I was crazy. And so in the second section, we kind of dove into that. Second part of the podcast, we dove into that difference a little bit, and it really put me onto the idea that maybe I was just missing something. And so far, from the couple of practice games I've gotten, I have scored very well in the tactical deck, and it's nice to get some extra CP as well. So I do kind of see what Tyler's saying, and while I'm a little afraid of some of the matchups that are out there right now, I can definitely see how orcs are being successful. The other thing that is really going for orcs in singles is a lot of players just don't know how to deal with pressure. If you just put enough stuff in their face, and a lot of people don't know what the orc profiles are like, if you just put enough stuff in their face and tell them to solve as many problems as you can possibly put in their face, then they're probably going to fail to deal with everything efficiently, and then you can kind of just overwhelm them and hold on to a points lead. So I think that's really how orcs tend to play. At the upper echelons of play, I feel like that's less of a sturdy way to win a tournament, which is why I've shied away from them for the last couple of GTs, because the people that A, play into orcs a fair amount, know their profiles, and B, know how to handle a pressure situation, can really just put the brakes on that kind of aggression. So I am cautiously optimistic about trying them out. I'm going to take them to this RTT, and hopefully I'll get some more practice games with them in a team setting going forward. But I think there's a lot of good stuff there, and I think also a lot of very durable. The playstyle is going to be durable and resilient to any changes that might come in future data slates, just because there's so much in orcs that scores points well. It really is just their interactions with other armies that I feel like the index is weak, right? Like they're good at doing the 10th edition thing of just scoring points and going and being in a lot of places and being able to do actions and play the mission. It's just sometimes other armies can blow you off the table. So those kind of strengths and weaknesses, that weakness can wax and wane in intensity over time, depending on what's powerful in the meta. If more cutesy stuff, mission play and tricks is really meta, then orcs can really counter that just by slamming the opponent right in the face and taking over the board. But right now, especially with things like CSM being good, it's very easy to, if you try to be cute with them, if you try to just play the board control style with something like CSM or something like, I don't know, nothing else is really coming to mind right now, but they will just blow you off the board. So yeah, that's where I'm at with orcs. I'm really excited about playing them this weekend, and I'm getting to run a lot of models that I haven't run before, and also some classics that I really love, like my 30 Beast Nagas that are all painted pretty decently, so I'm excited to see them on the board again. But yeah, I'm just excited, and yeah, so that's it for orcs. Do you want me to talk about Chaos Knights now, or do you want to go me, you, so that we're not just modeling?
Sure. Yeah, we can back and forth. What do you want to hear about from Bugs?
Well, you were playing this Swarm archetype for a while, and I know there's been some changes recently. You were initially on the like all Termagants and all Neurogants build, and quickly found that that was just kind of like too either flimsy or just you were at the mercy of your opponent. So you pivoted to a bunch of gargoyles, and now you've taken out more bugs in favor of some exocrines. So I'm curious to hear about these exocrines.
Yeah, for sure. So I think at the end of the day, it mirrors your orc experience pretty strongly in that I have been saying Swarm takes fixed every single time because it is a tactical Homer's army if there ever were one. All of your termagants can action in combat. They can advance in action. They have piles of OC to slam on objectives. So like that's happening all the time. You've got score mines. You've got the gaunts. You've got pyrovores. Like there's so much bullshit that can go deploy a teleport Homer. Like it just happens. And that's all powered then. The entire army, if you do that, becomes hinged around your Hive Tyrant because he's out there flinging command points every single turn. You can spend all your actual CP on revives, and your Hive Tyrant can just give you a free auto advance 6 and a free LFR, basically, every single player turn. You go back and forth between the two, or he can give you a go to ground, or I think the let us have our CP. They let us have our CP rerolls back as a freebie, if I'm not mistaken, in the World's FAQ. So you can use that. So that was kind of the way that I thought the build worked, and it made a lot of sense. It did the things. But I've been talking a lot with my boy Eric Lathuris, and he is like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing with that Hive Tyrant? That thing's an absolute waste of points. It's 235 points. How are you possibly using this thing? And I'm like, dude, it's mandatory. I want to spend 2 CP on bringing back a unit of Gargs basically every turn. You got to have it to do anything else. And he's like, why? That doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, you get 1 CP on every player turn, and every 2 player turns, I want to spend 2 CP. So that's the math. And he's like, wait, why aren't you discarding your tactical cards? And I'm like, tactical cards? What are you talking about? And he's right. You should be playing tactical with Swarm. I'm saying it right now. There's times and place for fixed, depending on the matchups, especially in a team setting when you're told, hey, go get bodied, take fixed, and just score all your points and make it work. But tactical is just way better because you get those 235 points out, and you say, all right, now that I've got 235 points to play with, because before that, the margins were pretty slim on fitting in anything else. Now I can start thinking about putting some damage in the list because obviously, the list doesn't do any damage, and that's usually fine, but occasionally it's not. You got to be able to remove something. Particularly, you got to remove something that's going to overextend into you and punish that, right? If things are all the way across the table dealing with gargoyles in their face, yeah, cool, whatever. That's not a problem. That's what the list is designed to deal with. You have gargoyles running point, and you have lone ops on your objectives. You're chilling. But once they break through that, or if they do immediately, you're playing against, I don't know, Calgar and aggressors with the infiltrate. You're playing against wraiths. You're playing against, chosen bricks that are getting in deep. Like anything gets through, and things do get through eventually, especially anything that flies, deal with crisis suits. Like you got to be able to punish that. And simultaneously, you got to be able to control a little bit of space with something other than bodies. So if there's a midfield objective that's wide out in the open and you have to put like 3 freaking units on it, you got to have a lone up on it to hold it. You got to have gargoyles out in front of it to screen it. You got to have termagants behind it to be able to interface. Like that is so much investment into holding an objective. And basically all of that can get cleared if your opponent wants to. By contrast, if you just have some guns to point down a lane at an objective, well, now you can control space or control where their guns get to stand, which means less investment for you. And also, it keeps your opponents honest. No more of this, oh, you don't do any damage, my entire army deploys in line and pushes. Well, if you do that, I'm going to shoot you with a gun. So at the moment, we got 3 exocrines in the list. The Tyrant is 235. The exocrines are 135. So you're like, well, where's the other, 235? 235. So where's the extra 170 points coming from? It's a squad of Gaunts, and the Barb Gaunts just got pulled. We're making do with 80 terms. It's enough. It just is, especially now that we're not doing as many fixed secondaries. And it has been really fun. It does the thing really well, and I think it's a really intelligent step forward because Exocrine put out incredibly good output for their points, and they have a full 36 inches of range to do it from. I wanted to try it with Maliceptors because like Maliceptors are very cool, but 18-inch range is just not going to cut it for what I'm looking for here. Even if they do get the increased durability and that strength 10, I wanted strength 10 so badly. Wanted it so bad, but no, we're stuck with strength 8. But it's worth it. It's cheaper, better range, and sufficient durability for the points. So that's where the swarm is at right now. We've got a bit rep of you playing CSM into that, a pretty high pressure army to see if they can cut the mustard. And I don't want to spoil it. That bit rep will hopefully be up within the next week. But it was a really good game. We had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, I really like this innovation in your list. I feel like, one of the key tenets of 10th edition is give your opponent more facets to think about than they can really handle. And, the swarm before was just like, deal with my lone op potentially battle shocking you and all these dudes in your face who could potentially blood surge into you. Now you're dealing with those things and also like 3 decent shooting platforms staring at your objective or whatever. So it's nice to be able to be like, yeah, deal with my gargoyles who are going to revive and my lone op and my shooting units, and it's just like, the layers of stuff that you're having to cut through at that point means there's more potential failure points for your opponent's plan. So I like it quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to playing some more of it. Tell me about where we're at with Chaos Knights.
Yeah, it's definitely not the most innovative fashion in terms of like list building right now. I mean, there's definitely like the most solved singles list, and it's probably the best list for teams as well. There's kind of like a few different variations you go down depending on whether or not you're playing singles or teams. I think in singles the best list is some combination. You take a stalker and you take some combination of carnivores and brigands depending on your taste and what terrain you have and what's in your meta. But in general, you can't go wrong with 5+ of each of those, and then you supplement with as many demons as you can possibly fit in. I think the Blue Scribes is mandatory. I think 2 or 3 squads of Nurglings are mandatory, and then you can fill with Changeling, Fleshhounds, more Nurglings, or another dog, basically. And that list is really good. It has a couple of sketchy matchups, but overall it's pretty strong into everything in the field right now that's good. And I think it has a fighting chance of winning basically any game. There's very few games I walk up and I'm like, I don't have a very good shot at winning this game. So, yeah, that's a really excellent list. Not a lot more needs to be said about it. And there's a couple different variations depending on if you're playing singles or teams or if you want to have some fun. The fun variation is you run a Rampager. The Rampager is not only really fun, but pretty good as well, with the new ability to hide behind walls. Now that the towering, keyword has been changed, it means the Rampager can hide very easily, but more importantly, stage very easily, right? You can be behind a wall in your DZ, spend a CP to run up behind another wall in the mid board. Maybe you get shot at by some like crazy angle off the side of the sideboard, and if your opponent does that, then they're probably getting shot by like 6 brigands. And if not, then your Rampager can go 12 plus D6 inches through that wall next turn because of Knights of Shade and just plunge your opponent's DZ into disarray. There's a couple enhancements that are really good on the Rampager. The first and most obvious one is Panoply of the Cursed Knights, which is just AOC on your knight. It's pretty expensive. I think it's like 40 points, but it's good. Especially, usually on something like a Rampage, you should be ready to spend a CP on rotating. So against shooting is not the end of the world, but there are a lot of units now that want to and are pretty good at bonking big targets, like, Chosen. If you're playing against GSC randomly, you'll play against Aberrants. There's opposing carnivores if you play the Mirror. There's, even something like the Avatar and the Incarn or AP4 in melee. Bringing that to AP3 means you actually get a save. And if you block D6 plus 2 damage randomly, it can be really big. So there's a lot of those melee units that reducing their AP by 1 when they come and hit you in melee is really, really good. So that's a really great enhancement. The other great enhancement for the Rampager I was kind of keyed on to by Noah Badome. And he took this to the World Championships of Warhammer and did very well with it. It's the Lord of Dread enhancement, which is a little bit cheaper. I think it's 30 points. And it basically says at the start of every fight phase, the Rampager picks an enemy unit in engagement range, and it takes a battle shock test. So this is really important because, like I was saying, there's all those melee units that want to fight. In particular, Chosen, right? Chosen are only very efficient in melee because of the undivided stratagem. Chosen are leadership 6, so with the Chaos Knights -1 leadership aura, that means 56% of the time they pass that battle shock test, 44% of the time they don't, right? So it's very, as a CSM player facing down that morale test, it's very difficult to commit to that test at the beginning of the turn. Saying, I can run in and punch your Rampager really hard in the face with real hits and wounds. And then the Chaos Knight player says, just so you know, 40% of the time that won't happen. And then I can spend
And
a
you'll be
CP to get...
-1 to hit.
Yeah, well, on turn 3, yes. And then also, like, 1 CP, 5 of Feel No Pain. All of a sudden, you're chosen to do, like, 4 damage and get annihilated. So, it's not so much that it is a very guaranteed play, but it's that your opponent has to respect it, and any play they go for has a very significant chance of failing. So, any chosen person is taking a big risk by charging the Rampager with chosen. So, it could totally pay off. I mean, more than half the time it still works. But it's a good enhancement to like scare players, especially more coy players who won't go for a risk like that. And then you can be really ballsy with your Rampager, which is pretty fun. So that's really good. I haven't tried either of these. I haven't played the Rampager in a while, but I'm painting mine up right now, and she's almost done. So I'm very excited to get her on the table. Hopefully, we'll get some bit reps of her in the near future, because I'm very excited to play some games. So yeah, the Rampager is really fun and also very viable as well, because she's the least expensive of the big knights, which is cool, I think. That might not be true. I think she is, though. Either way, she's the best one by far and is really fun and viable, which is great. The other option is, or the other little variant is, in teams, you might not be able to play with demons. The fix there is very simple. You can either just sub in another dog or take the Rampager. But basically, the 13 War Dog list is also very viable. It's just a lot less flexible than the Demons version because you have less screening, you have less mission play, you don't have a lone up to hold your backfield. There's all sorts of reasons why it's not as good as the 12 Dog version, but it is still very good for teams, especially if you have another Chaos Army that wants to gobble up demons, like Death Guard also kind of want Chaos Knights, but Death Guard and CSM both desperately want demons. So very often in a team setting, the CK will get stuck without them, and it's still a totally functional army. So not a lot of cool innovations in the realm of CK, but they're still really fun.
Bro.
What?
You got to talk about the best big knight for Chaos Knights. It's not the Rampager.
No, you're gonna make me talk about the Lancer.
No, absolutely not. That thing's terrible.
The Abominant.
No, come on, dude. We saw it at Slashmas this weekend, or last weekend, or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, the Porphyrion?
The Chaos Porphyrion, baby.
I mean, that thing is good at shooting holes. It's true.
I don't remember who you were.
That's all I'll say about
Chaos Porphyrion to Slashmas is an absolute Chad. Love that.
Yeah, there was a guy with a Porphyrion there. It was pretty funny.
It was very cool. Nah, Cam, not him. Don't worry. Not that guy. Someone else. Chaos. Anyway.
Queen. Oh, God, dude, not the Queen.
Queen's fallen.
Fantastic.
All right, man.
GSC time.
Yeah.
Are you a car gamer now?
I'm so car pilled. Oh,
cars.
So I don't remember exactly what I talked about. Like, this was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show. I talked about a whole bunch of different tech pieces for GSC and different directions to take it. Talked about the laser cars, and I took those to Slashmas. You heard about it in the Slashmas episode. They're really good. I kept playing them wrong. I kept not starting them on the table. I kept reserving them, which is the wrong move. Just start them on the table. They're great. I stand by that unit. Very cool piece of tech. Stand by that list. It's a good list. But better list was talking about the guard tech in that one. And I futzed around with the guard a bunch. And because I'm me, I can't possibly settle for just like the obvious regular version of the thing. It has to be a little bit stupid and snowflakey and not better, but different in a way that I'll talk about for a really long time. That's kind of my thing. So instead of bringing 40 catechins in 4 Chimera, I am currently on 30 catechins, 10 Cadians in 4 Taroks, which I think are way better. And by way better, I mean like 0.5% better, which my brain means tells me I have to use.
Better is better.
Better is better. That's true. So Catachans versus Cadians. Cadians don't scout, which is a bummer, and they have different weapons, kind of whatever, but they get sticky objectives, which is huge for GSC. Unfortunately, the way the points work out, there's literally no way to take 40 dudes, 10 or 40 dudes, 4 transports, and another dude to put in the fourth dedicated transport. So you have to start all 40 dudes in their boxes. So you can't start the sticky objective unit on the objective. So they start in and then they get out, and then turn 2 they get back in. If you want to sticky your home field, there are obviously matchups where you can just put your mortar car on the backfield and that gets the job done. But if you want the sticky there, that's cool. Otherwise, they can run up and sticky a midfield or something. Tarox versus Chimera. Tarox do not have firing deck, and they don't have flamers, so they don't put out nearly as much anti-infantry firepower with dudes inside of them as the Chimera do. And they're also less durable. They're 1 pip less toughness, and I think they're like 2 fewer wounds. 1 fewer wound. Cool. But in exchange, you pick up 2 pips of movement. You go from movement 10 to movement 12, and you can get out after advancing. And you get a twin-linked autocannon. And they're 5 points cheaper.
Pog.
And more important than any of that, they're tiny. They're so little. And they're little with the little tread wheel things. So like they're almost identical in terms of dimension to a Sagittar, which if you played into Sagittars, you know how tiny they are and how annoying it is that they're so tiny and maneuverable. So I'm all in on this. They're a ton of fun. I've only played 1 game with them so far, I think. Yeah, because I'm playing a bunch of Swarm. Played them into our roommate Skylar's Votan the other day. Man, bumper cars are awesome. Scout 6, move 12. Advance and get guys out, or just act, or shoot your twin-linked autocannons and kill stuff, or charge. Like, they're fantastic. Loving them. They're a really good time, and I would highly recommend them. The rest of the list kind of builds itself, but it turns GSC into a board control army, which is really weird as a person who's not used to having board control, because it's 4 cars full of 10 dudes, and I'm still taking aberrants, right? So the aberrants start in mid-board, and they're right there. And then also, boom, here's all the Tarox. And the Aberrants say, hey, you want to come deal with the Tarox? If you come deal with the Tarox, I'm going to go Aberrant you. And if you don't come out to deal with the Tar, and if you come out and melee them, and if you come out and shoot me and commit, GSC, like, bring down the hammer, Neophytes, Acolytes. There's still 20 Acolytes, 40 Neophytes in this list. 60 Neophytes? 40 Neophytes. 40 Neophytes. 40 Neophytes, 20 Acolytes, 3 Primuses, and no Saboteur, and a Biophagus. That's the other thing that I didn't think about when I was talking about this tech. I have 4 characters in my GSC list, baby.
Let's go! Playing around Assassinate.
Get him. You will not be taking Assassinate. Thank you very much.
The Nexus is bad. Don't run him.
The Nexus is good. I stand by that data sheet. But
no.
He's not better than a Tarox. That squad is so good, dude. It feels so good. But yeah, the Tarox also open hilariously, as I'm over here talking about how much I love that the GSC list enables tactical. Part of what I love about the Horde Nids list enables tactical. Part of what I love so much about the GSC list of the cars is it enables fixed. Because as a GSC player, there was a long time there where it was like, man, even into Tau, I'm playing tactical. You give up 300 bring it down points, and I'm still taking tactical.
Because you just don't have a homer unit.
I can't do actions, yeah. I discard every action secondary I get as a GSC player until like the very late game, maybe. Or there's some very specific circumstance, or like it's just the Reductus. Like there were genuinely times where I would play into Tau, and I would take fixed homer, and my homer unit was the Aberrants behind a wall. I had a 400-point unit slamming a button every turn.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, this innovation by Nanavati, because like he was the brainchild. Totally. He was the person that created this idea. Was really cool. Because it fixed like one of the fundamental issues of the faction, which was there's only like 6 units in the army and all of them have to be doing stuff. You don't really have any extraneous anything. So, if any piece fails to do its job, or, you need something to go stand somewhere or do an action or block, you just can't, which
Yeah.
sucks. So,
The
really, really smart change by him.
What's also just incredible to me is that dudes in transports are basically 3-inch deep strike in my head. Like that's how it felt playing into Skylar. Was I was like, man, I gotta go stand there. I gotta go take that objective. Damn, I gotta use my 3-inch deep strike on that. I wanted a 3-inch deep strike to bomb something, and I can't do both from that position. Darn. Oh wait, I've got 10 dudes in a boat.
Just run over there and do it.
Stand there. Yeah, it's great. And also because of the sequencing, the ability to be like, hey, here's my 10 dudes. You want to Overwatch them? Because if you don't, that's my objective, and you're not going anywhere. You do? Okay. Bomba. Um, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited to see it. There's gonna be some good bumper boating happening. I'm curious to see. Does a Land Raider Redeemer kill a Tarox in a single round of shooting?
Shooting
Yeah,
or Overwatch?
both.
Overwatch, I think it's like very iffy, but probably not. Shooting, yes, because then you like throw in the
Oh, you get the
extra
multi-level,
weapons
yeah.
and stuff.
Totally. Interesting. Well, man.
I
what
know
wanna
this
hear-
because Nick has mauled it about it killing a Sagittar in Overwatch every time I see him for the last 2 fucking months.
All right. I will not get my. Well, I might get them overwatched anyway. But yeah, good to know. All right, sweet. So that's the state of GSC. Haven't done a bear up with those yet. I want to take some time to get them hobbied. I got some Sagittars from a buddy of mine. Big shout out to our boy John Smith. It's actually the Tyranid player I played at the Nationals round too.
Some Tower
Yeah,
Rocks, you mean, right?
Yeah, some Tarox. What did I say I got from him?
Sagittars.
Oh, Sagittars. No, I didn't get Sagittars. I got Tarox. And he's
Votan Kings!
Up. Votan, man. All I ever play against is Votan. Yeah, it's very funny. Like in my mind, I'm like, what am I prep for? I'm prep for Votan. I'm prep for CSM. Are there other armies? I don't even know.
We're definitely in our own little meta up here, dude. It's kind of wild.
It's wonky, man. High pressure.
None of us know how to play against Eldar.
I mean back in the day, like back in back in the good old days when I had good GSC, I really absolutely loved just absolutely ramming Eldar players at War Master. So I knew how to play them back then, and the army was a lot better into mine. So I think I'd be okay. But I'll find you, Ben. I'll play you. It'd be great. I don't actually think that the Tarox make the Eldar matchup better. They probably actually make it worse because the Tarox gets Night Spinner to hell. So we'll see. Anyway, we're half an hour into our episode about the missions. We haven't talked about the missions yet. You ready to jump into some main stuff here? So missions wise, there are 3 components. There is your deployment type, there is your primary, and there is your funny mission rule. That's all the things. So we're going to talk about all 3 of those, and we are going to be putting them on a tier list. I'll go ahead and pull it up here. Are we sticking with regular tier names, or are we doing funny tier names?
Oh, god damn it. Okay, hold on. We can do this live for the lows, dude. Ready?
For the lows, absolutely.
Alright, this is Giga-based tier. A tier is Australian Horde meta tier. Oh. B tier, do you have any fun ideas?
I feel like you have this all figured out already. Keep going, dude.
Bush's Beans tier.
Wow, you would consider Beans to be a B tier replacement. That's wow, incredible.
C tier, Art of War, Steve classic. D tier,
As a point of clarification for our listeners, we're good friends with the people over at Art of War. When we say that Art of War is the C tier idea, that's in response to how aggressive they play. Was how Steve started this joke. Steve says that S tier is deploy on the line, and F tier or D tier for us here is shoots gun tier, and Art of War is like closer to the bottom because they promote a very cagey, not very aggressive play style in general. We love Art of War. This is strictly a joke about the particular style of play that they like.
This is us laughing at Steve, not trying to criticize Art of War.
Yeah, exactly. Love them. All right, so we've got Giga-based, Australian Horde meta, Bush's Beans, Art of War, and Shoots Gun tier. We're going to start with the deployments because these are the thing that is the most universal. Like everyone plays on basically all of these, with a particular notable exception. And we're going to start with that exception, actually. Talk to me about Dawn of War, Lucas. What is it, and how do we feel about it?
So Dawn of War is the classic deployment type, and I feel like we all have fond memories of playing on Dawn of War, but unfortunately, in the year of our Lord 2023, it just has a lot of issues, and a lot of that I will say is kind of brought upon by the GW maps, which are all just kind of like dog shit to play Dawn of War on.
They're
But
so bad.
overall, I'm gonna have to put Dawn of War in Art of War tier as my vote. Do you agree? Disagree? What are your thoughts?
I was gonna put Art of War. I was gonna put Dawn of War immediately in Shoots Gun tier, dude.
I can respect it honestly.
I absolutely despise Dawn of War. Dawn of War on that new Art of War layout that we played on at Sinestros was super fun. I should have played it max on that today when we did Dawn of War instead of on the GW map. I think that makes Dawn of War a lot more palatable, but it's terrible. It's just so bad. Always has been, always will be. We do not play it at WTC for a reason. It's just like actively unpleasant.
Yo, Colby, what's Sugandese, dude? Can you? What is that? I've never heard that.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't even be making fun of any ethnicities over here, Colby. That seems kind of racist. I would not encourage that behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, Dawn of War, real bad. Moving on. Up next, we got Sweeping Engagement, better known by a lot of names. Pointy Dawn of War. I can't believe it's not Dawn of War. What does Bird call this? Pizza deployment.
Oh god damn it! Not pizza and hot dog, bro.
The frickin' new Vanguard. This is the one that goes from the halfway point on your left short table edge to the bottom right corner. This is kind of exciting because while Dawn of War is the original deployment from back in the day, Sweep Engagement is the 10th edition deployment. This did not exist prior to now. It replaces the Vital Intelligence deployment. Vanguard, just called Vanguard deployment, Vanguard Strike, Vanguard. What was it called back in the day? Anyway,
I don't fucking know.
it replaces Vanguard. I personally think that Sweeping Engagement is acceptable, like it's decent, but it's nothing crazy. I think if I did not know about Vanguard deployment, I would put it in high B, low A tier, like a being hoping to become an Australian horde. But in reality, having played Vanguard, I think that Sweeping Engagement is just objectively worse Vanguard, and I'm putting it pretty squarely in the beans tier. What do you think, Lucas?
I agree. I mean, I am a notorious Sweeping Engagement enjoyer. I think it's just Crucible of Battle, but more fun and slightly less balanced. Part of the reason for that is you start closer to your opponent, which is kind of troll. But overall, I think it has a lot of the perks that Crucible of Battle does. Not to spoil that one, but I think we're both going to rate it very highly. So yeah, I would personally have this one in Australian Horde meta, but I think overall, in most people's opinion, and I'm totally happy to put it in Bush's Beans, I think it's kind of deserves that spot.
To clarify what Lucas mentioned here, you do start exceptionally close together in Sweeping Engagement. And you're like, what do you mean? You're like 30 inches apart. But you're 30 inches apart along the diagonal. You can rotate that diagonal up. And actually going point to point, you can do the trig. I think it's something like 20.9 inches between the DZs, which is just too close. It's just too close. The previous philosophy way back in the day from like 8th edition or 7th edition. When did Search and Destroy drop? Was that 8th? I think that was 8th. Before Search and Destroy came out, the idea was you're always 24 apart, and we just have 3 different ways to do that: long ways, short ways, and diagonal. And switching away from that philosophy into letting things get closer together has only ever been a bad idea, in my opinion. There's been some fun ideas that have come out of it, but the results have been largely that starting closer together is bad for the game. And I think that at least part, not all for sure, but a part of the reason that I feel like pressure is so dominant in the meta right now is because there are so many of these deployments being played while people really don't like Dawn of War in particular. Sweeping Engagement shows up a ton. And as a result, the anyone who can cross the table, it gets that much better when there's much less table to cross.
Yep. All right, search and destroy time. Search and destroy is, speaking of deployments where you start criminally close to each other, the corners deployment type, where there is that 9-inch radius circle in the middle of the board where it's no man's land, and then you kind of have a quarter of the table from there to deploy your army in either the lower left or upper right corner. How do you feel about search and destroy, Tyler? I know it's a divisive one that some people love and some people hate.
First, I want to say right off the top that two things. First off, it is bottom left and upper right. I somehow, in the year of our Lord 2023, still see some people setting up search and destroy from the bottom right and upper left.
How?
People were doing this at Charity Hammer, and I was like, what?
People, do you play the game?
You always play out of the bottom left, dude. So that's crazy. Secondly, if you thought starting 22 was too close together, on Search and Destroy, it's an 18-inch no man's land, the longest way possible. The shortest way possible from like the most upper right corner of your DZ to the most lower left corner of your opponent's is like 11 inches.
It's kind of, yeah.
A standard infantry model that starts in the corner and rolls a 6 on his advance with an assault weapon can deploy a homer in his opponent's DZ turn 1.
Is dumb.
I think that Search and Destroy needs to be a 12-inch circle at a minimum. And it's very silly that it's like a fan favorite. I think the thing that it does that's really cool is it creates asymmetry, which I think is the biggest problem with a lot of the other deployment types, is that there's 3 no man's lands objectives, one of which is equally close to both of you, one of which is closer to one player, and one of which is closer to the other player. And that dynamic is awesome. I love that. I think that is the thing that makes Search and Destroy a real fan favorite deployment, is that it creates such obviously delineated zones of interaction, and choosing which way you want to go is up to you. But yeah, I put Search and Destroy in Shoots Gun tier. It's a deployment that is often joked about as being melee favored, but at the end of the day, it's a shooting deployment in my mind. It becomes really hard to hide if your terrain isn't set up quite right for it, and if anyone has even remotely fast guns, move forward, shoot guns. Like it just works. It just works.
I'm gonna leave it in Art of War tier personally, just because
Mm-hmm.
when 2 armies are playing each other that, you know, no one's gonna feel bad if the other one goes first on Search and Destroy, then it can lead to like really fun, fair games. And I like where the objectives are placed. I think it's a lot of fun. It's also cool that like you start with such a Thunderdome in the middle, but then every once in a while, you know, unfortunately fairly often now with the prevalence of the pressure meta, like it's very easy to just like get locked out of a game if you go second on Search and Destroy, which is kind of gross. So like, you know, 80% of the time you play fine games on it, and then 20% of the time it's just god awful. So Art of War tier for it.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
We're gonna just one more thing I want to say. We're gonna get to some intersectionality between the different deployments, the different primaries and stuff. I think that Search and Destroy is the best deployment type for servo skulls. I think that Search and Destroy servo skulls is awesome. I think that if we're gonna go mash heads in the center, let's get there immediately and start mashing.
Sure.
So if you're a servo skulls enjoyer, I think Search and Destroy is the right mission for that. Very cool. All right. Tell us a little bit about Crucible of Battle, Lucas.
This is the best deployment in the game, and I don't want to hear anything else from any of you haters. You start 24 inches apart. It has all the benefits of Hammer and Anvil. It has some of the features of, I don't know, it doesn't really have any features of Dawn of War, but like the diagonal is fun because that has a wide front of engagement. You start relatively far from your opponent. You have somewhat decent access to all the objectives. It meshes very well with most, if not all, of the GW formats. I just love Crucible of Battle. I think there are very few downsides to this deployment type. One of the benefits, in my opinion, is just how fun it is to play with strategic reserves on Crucible of Battle, just because so much of the table is unlocked to you on turn 2 that your opponent has to like constantly be thinking about like screening you out, and just the amount of plays you can pull off of any board edge when there's, relative to the DZ, like so much of the table you can come in on turn 2 is just really cool. So yeah, I mean, I love Crucible of Battle.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Crucible is really great because it definitely allows you to play to the top or to the bottom, which is really exciting. I feel like one of the problems with sweeping engagement is that playing to the bottom puts you pretty damn far back if you want to fit any actual like chonky units down there and interact with terrain. Um, Whereas playing to the top in Crucible is a much more valid strategy. But yeah, it's very reasonably balanced. You're a good distance apart, not quite the full 24, but also not 11. You have a wide enough front to engage, but not such a wide front that angles are automatic. You have a deep field to sit into. I maintain that like this is still worse than Vanguard. Like I still prefer Vanguard personally, but that's fine. Of the five that we have, it is by far the best one. I fully agree.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. All right, Hammer and Anvil, the classic, one of the
Indeed.
classics. I feel like we would like this deployment a lot more if the only GW mission that was associated with it, or I guess there's like one or two. There's two, I think. But like one of them, unfortunately, is Sites of Power, which everyone seems to hate. So, I personally would put Hammer and Anvil in Bush's Beans tier below Sweeping Engagement. How do you feel?
I would completely agree. I yeah. It's one of those. It's definitely the third best. But
I think it would
where do you want to
absolutely be where I've put it if there were other missions that worked well with Hammer and Anvil in the GW packet.
I agree with that assessment. I also think that part of what pains me about Hammer and Anvil is much in the way that sweeping engagement is held back by the memory of the past of Vanguard. Hammer and Anvil is held back by like the dreams of the future. We've been talking about this for like two editions now of how to make Hammer and Anvil good, and it's like so simple. You take the two flank midfield objectives and you go like this or like that. I don't care which, right? The problem is that Hammer. The problem is that what?
I'm not putting that
The
last one
problem
up.
is that that Hammer and Anvil has the same issues that Dawn of War does in terms of the objective placement, but needs but like doesn't have the other problems. So I really want an asymmetry in terms of the objectives from one to the other, but there isn't that. And the other downside is that there's no way to get away from anyone on Hammer and Anvil if you're trying to play for midfield. You could this I felt really strongly when I lost to Arna at War Master with his Chaos Knights. Like I was like, man, I'm gonna try to clear this flank. Oh, every single knight is now on that flank. They're not very far apart. I maybe we're being too harsh on Search and Destroy. I'm back and forth on Hammer and Anvil. I don't know how much I
I
love it.
personally think Hammer and Anvil is easily a step up from Search and Destroy. But I could be wrong. I think it's better. Maybe it's at the same tier, but
Yeah, maybe just yeah. I feel like it's insulting to put this a tier up. I would drop that down to Art of War tier.
all right, fair enough.
Um, yeah, I'll accept this. This seems reasonable to me. Um, uh, Tanner says it's way easier to get shut out on Hammer and Anvil to the same kinds of pressure than it is on sweeping or search and destroy. But what's nice on Hammer is because you have the really deep DZ that your opponent cannot be all the way inside of. You can actually sit back and fight your way out of that, and you're not on top of your objective in the process. If someone applies you heavy pressure on search and destroy, they're fighting for your home field. On Hammer, they're not getting your home field turn one. That's not real. They're so far away. If you can set up even half a screen, then you're good.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
like you get shut out in different ways, right? It's your opponent thunder smashes into your DZ on turn one versus your opponent's on all the objectives and you're super safe, but it's difficult to get that claw back into the game.
yeah,
I love how easy it is to hide on Hammer and Anvil. Like, it's very hard to be alpha struck on that deployment type, which is a big boon for that particular
yeah,
deployment.
absolutely. Sweet. I'm happy with this. This seems like about the right snapshot. Take your screen grabs now,
The screen
and
grabs,
let's move
post to
us on to our
Reddit.
next.
This is the Authority, the Warhammer Authority, and anyone who disagrees with us is a fucking idiot.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to remove this briefly while I
Sweet.
set up the
Go
next
ahead and set
one.
up the second one.
Entertain the folks.
Yeah, so up next, we're going to be talking about the different primaries. I feel like this is probably the most controversial because we'll talk about mission rules last, and I think mission rules are all kind of like funny. But the primaries people have some very strong and serious opinions about, and for very good reason. This was probably one of the best ideas in the pack, that we shouldn't just be playing this like in, in ninth edition, we had Taken Hold and we had Domination, and that was it. And by the end of the night, there were only 2 domination missions in the first place. This, of course, for those of y'all who weren't playing back then, this was hold 1, hold 2, who hold more, and hold 2, hold 3, hold more were the 2 different primaries. So the idea of expanding that to include a lot of different ways to score the main points in the game, super cool idea. All of them are still, at the end of the day, hold objectives. But the reality of the situation is that some of them require holding objectives in some very different ways than others. So they're not necessarily all going to be quite as exciting. A couple of these have caught some absolutely serious flack that I think is deserved, and some have caught some flack that I think is not so deserved. So we'll see what we've got to go around there. How we doing, Lucas? Great timing. Sweet.
Booyah.
So first up, we did Dawn of War first, so it only makes sense to do Scorched Earth first. Is there a Scorched Earth that's not on Dawn of War in the pack?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So,
Which, like I was kind of saying for Hammer and Anvil, I kind of feel like that is what holds it back, not necessarily Scorched Earth being bad. I feel like everyone kind of is like, oh, Scorched Earth, yay, if I go first, I'll get a huge primary lead, because it's on Dawn of War, right? I feel like if we played this on something like Sweeping Engagement or Crucible of Battle, people would be much more enthusiastic to actually play Scorched Earth. I really like this mission. It's the one where you get 5 points for holding 1, 10 points for holding 2, and you can burn objectives on turn, I think it's on turn 2 onward, for 5 points if you burn a midfield.
2 through 4.
2 through 4. 5 points if you burn a midfield, 10 if you burn your opponent's home field, which is really fun, and I feel like promotes fights all over the board, and also like gives... It's cool that there's like an action in the primary missions. I don't think, other than the ritual, I don't really think there's any other primary missions that have that, which I think is really cool. I personally think Scorched Earth is a solid... I think it's an average mission. I think it's good. I think there's a lot going for it. I think, it's certainly not the most glamorous mission, and it's being held back by only on Dawn of War, but this is where I'd put it. What do you think?
I think there's one more thing that holds Scorched Earth back, which is that Scorched Earth is a hold 1, hold 2, that's it mission, where you get your home field.
True.
So the reality of the situation is, if your opponent is on their home field and one other objective, they have maxed out their primary. So if like they're holding 1 midfield versus they're holding 3, same difference. It's all 10 points, which I think is probably good for the game. It's compelling. But I think it's the part of it that makes it feel kind of wonky, that if you want to break parity on primary, you almost have to burn an objective. I like burning objectives as a mechanic, though. It's really neat that that you get to have the trade-off of, do I want to burn this or not, and when do I want to burn this? Tanner's absolutely right that you can't just ignore the cheap scoring units actioning. That's real great. I love that the mechanic of the burning is you have to hold it to start it, but you don't have to hold it to finish it, right? You just have to still be there. If I'm not mistaken, that's the mechanics of it. That's a really cool thing of like, hey, I've got this really durable unit. I drop my Land Raider over there, and the dudes get out, and the Land Raider just hits the button. And it doesn't matter if you come through and kill all my dudes and take the objective back, it's gone. And I think that's really cool. I don't think that it's the best mission with disappearing objectives. Tanner makes a pretty good point here that that's the most the ability to just hold 10s at parity is the most Art of War tier thing ever.
Fair.
I think it's probably going to be the bottom Bush's Beans tier mission, but we'll see what ends up happening there. Let's keep it going into something a little bit more controversial, at least with me.
Purge the Foe. This is old school ITC. So you get 4 points for each of the following conditions you satisfy. You get 4 points for killing an enemy unit during a battle round, 4 points for holding an objective in your command phase. At the end of the battle round, we check who has killed more units. So that gives you 4 points. And in your command phase, if you hold more objectives than your opponent does, you also get 4 points. So you can score a maximum of 16 in every command phase based on primary. And definitely an interesting mission. Unfortunately, one that I think it's probably the primary mission that punishes you most for list building decisions, which never feels good. I feel like most missions, or most lists, shouldn't really punish you that hard for building a list a certain way. This one is like, yeah, you bought a lot of characters, or you're playing MSU. Yeah, fuck you, dude. Your opponent's gonna beat your ass on primary because of the army that you're playing, which can feel really bad. So for all of those reasons, I like Purge the Foe. I think the kind of like hold more, kill more dance is really fun. I love that there's an advantage on hold more if you go first, and there's an advantage on kill more if you go second. That's a really fun dynamic. But
How is there an
unfortunately,
advantage on hold more if you go first? Just
because
because
you
can
put
like,
yourself
take
on all the
more?
objectives immediately.
I guess. But like you get bottom turn primary with Purge the Foe for the hold more.
Yeah, that's one turn of 4.
Yeah, and it's one turn of you're on the objectives first if you go first.
Tanner, missions affecting list building is excellent. Sure, in principle, I agree, sort of, but like this saying you played an MSU army, fuck you, or like I played an elite army, I have a gigantic primary advantage, where one of the quintessential ways to beat an elite army is on primary. Just giving them a mission that they get like 30 points for showing up is super cringe.
I really like the opposite. The let's design missions to incentivize lists. This idea is not to disincentivize things.
Agreed.
Right? Sites of Power, the Ritual, Servo Skulls. These are missions that really incentivize bringing a certain type of thing, but don't massively punish you for not bringing that in the way that this does. I think that Purge the Foe also gives a massive advantage to going second, particularly with the kill more on turn 1. The fact that you get kill more points on turn 1 means that if you are able to deploy defensively and your opponent tries to take some primary, and they can't do anything because you're hiding like a little Art of War coward, and you jump out and you kill a unit, you get 8 points of primary over your opponent. 8-point primary lead, bottom 1. Art of War tier at best.
I agree. I think it's going to end up somewhere in mid to low Art of War tier.
Yeah, okay, cool. So we mentioned it as a specific idea of where...
Slice of Power is Lieutenant with combi weapons here.
Really
we're gonna get to that next, brother. Don't you worry.
Yeah, let's talk about Sites of Power. So Sites of Power, one of the more nuanced missions that people don't like. It's pretty simple on principle. You get 3 points for holding objectives in your command phase. However, in addition to that, if you have a character on that objective when you're holding it in your command phase, the site, that objective, becomes empowered, assuming it's a midfield, can't be your home field, can't be your opponent's home field. As long as that character remains on that objective, it remains empowered. And that's even if, kind of like with the burning condition on Scorched Earth, even if the objective is lost, if that character is still there, that objective is still empowered. It's like you slam Magnus or Morty or Angron or a Tau Commander, some big chunky character unit, or like Hearthguard Champ or Death Leap or whatever on an objective and some other crap. If the opponent takes the objective back, as long as you stay there, you're still empowering it. You're still scoring points. You get 3 extra points for every empowered objective, and it caps at 15. 15 primary in total. Cough, cough, Alex Pena. This mission, I think, much in the way that Dawn of War is held back by Sites of Power, much in the way that Hammer and Anvil is held back by Sites of Power, I think Sites of Power is also held back by Hammer and Anvil.
Agreed.
I think Sites of Power Crucible is way more fun.
I agree.
Because on Crucible, you have objectives that are way off on the flanks that are hard to get involved in the fight, and it's a super common tactic to just slam down a character over there, and forcing people to really want to go dig out your characters. Very cool. And also like trying to really hold down an objective over there being worth really good points. Very cool. I think that 64% go first win rate, Tanner, is because everyone only seems to play it on the Hammer and Anvil one, and that's a bad combination. It's a bad combo. We'll talk more about some ideas for how to make things better. Colby brings up a popular idea in our local meta on how to fix this, which is to bring in one of our specials we'll talk about later. Scrambler fields, no deep striking or infiltrating onto objectives. I don't think this solves the problem at all.
No.
Oh no, I can't infiltrate onto an objective. Whatever will I do? Maybe I'll infiltrate a millimeter off the objective and then walk onto it. Turn one.
If the problem is going first and having characters on objectives, Scrambler Fields does not solve it. It just introduces another irritating way, an irritating mission rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool tech for like shutting down GSC in particular from getting our characters onto objectives, but like nobody else's. I don't know who's deep strike, like keep an Einir champion off your objective. Who can he deep strike solo? Is that if he takes the crest? I think that's how that works.
Nope, definitely is not. Unless you're Richard Siegler.
Okay, cool. Bummer. Oh, because he's got a lead. Because the crest lets him give it when he leads, which lets the guy take the invul. Anyway,
I think it is Art of War tier at best.
Yep.
I feel like if we played it on Crucible, I legitimately think this one would be low Bush's Beans tier. But until then, it's got to go Art of War at best.
Yeah. I'm back. How do you think it stacks up against Purge the Foe?
Huh?
How do you think it backs up? How do you think it stacks up against Purge the Foe?
Oh, I mean, in an ideal world, I think it's better than Purge the Foe. Right now, I think it's worse because it's only played on Hammer and Anvil, which just really accentuates the issues with the primary mission.
Gotcha. I'm with you on that. I'm willing to cede that. I think that it's better, but I think it's definitely within that realm of acceptability. Cool. Let's talk about Vital Ground. This is a really cool idea for a mission.
I love this mission.
We remove the center objective. That's crazy. First time I read this, I was like, that's crazy. Insightful commentary over here, Tyler. Center objective goes away. This is the best balance of home field versus midfield versus opponent's DZ. Your home field's worth 2. Midfield's worth 5. Opponent's DZ is worth 6. And you want to play over there, not in the center. There's still reasons to go into the center. Maybe you took homers. Maybe you want to be able to explode into any direction. Maybe you want to get area denial, right? Like there's plenty of reason to be in the middle of the table. We don't need an objective there. Really cool idea. Definitely holds back some, also disincentivizes taking cleanse. I think that's really cool. I like that there's a mission that says cleanse is really hard. Very cool thing. Yeah. What do you think?
I really like that it gives you 2 points for the home field. I think this is like a unique idea that they really introduced, as far as I'm aware, only in 10th edition. Where, you know, the objective you start on in your DZ that's mega easy to hold, that's super hard for your opponent to interact with, maybe shouldn't be worth the same as an objective in mid-board that you have to fight over. Wow, what a fucking concept. It's cool that it gives you some points, so you don't just walk off it, like supply drop. But I like it. It's like, you know, here's a little bit of drip feeding points so that you have to stay here, but you're not getting full rewarded for this. I really like Vital Ground. Honestly, in my opinion, I would put this in Giga-based, but I am happy to demote it to Australian Horde meta if you feel like it's not quite that good. Looking through the rest of these, I struggle to see any of them that really beat this in terms of how cool it is and how fun it is to play. There might be like one or two.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think let's put it in the top of Australian Horde meta for now and reevaluate its position later on. But yeah, it's an excellent mission. I completely agree. I think that I would love to see that idea of different points for different objectives implemented on some of the other more normal missions that have 3 centers. I think a Vital Ground scoring with a midfield would be a really interesting thing to try out. And I feel like it gets overshadowed how cool that is by how much the no center objective changes the whole dynamic.
Imagine if Scorched Earth gave you 3 points for your home field.
Yep. That'd be great.
Sick.
That'd be sick. I think that'd be a really good change for Scorched Earth. I think that Vital Ground had the downside is that it often leads to very low scoring games on both sides, which I think can definitely incentivize secondary play over primary play. But it's not bad. It's a really good mission. I really like it. Let's move on down to what I think is one of the most controversial, like you love it or you hate it missions, which is priority targets.
Yep.
Which is, hey, we haven't had endgame scoring in a minute. Let's put that back in. Hold one, hold two, so caps at 10 a turn, like Scorched Earth. But in addition to that, and you score for your home field, and in addition to that, at the end of the game, you get points for standing on objectives. What do you think about this, Lucas?
Man, it's tough. I can see what they were going for, and I I like the idea, but personally, I feel like the execution was a miss, and I'm not quite sure what could be better about it. I haven't given it that much thought because you're usually just molding about this mission, not actually thinking of ways to make it better. But that being said, it's a frustrating mission to play in my opinion because especially the way I like to play the game, like pressure, primary denial, beating your opponent out of like a couple of key primary swings and like by the end of the game, you've beaten them by like 10 or 15 on primary. If your opponent just outlasts you and then walks onto the objectives by playing super safe until turn 4 or 5, they can have a 25-point primary swing at the end and you get 0, which feels awful. It also is the mission which accentuates the go first, go second dichotomy more than any other mission in the game, in my opinion. Like, frankly, the fact that this doesn't have I think this would probably be one of the lowest go first win rate. Like if we're going to criticize Sites of Power for having a gigantic go first win rate, we have to criticize priority targets for having a gigantic go second win rate. I don't know if the data actually pans that out, but I feel like at the top levels of play, every time you get this mission, it's like, well, we're both staring at each other pre-game, knowing that whoever goes second just had like a 20% spike in the chance to win the game. So I personally, I don't hate this mission like I hate some of the other ones, but I don't think it's going to be in Bush's Beans tier. I think it's going to go squarely in Art of War. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think I like it better than Purge the Foe in Sights. Because I think I like that it says, hey, here's how the game has to work based on whether you're going first or second, and you better be ready for either of those. If you want to win this game going in first, you need to smother your opponent or make or hold your 10 every turn and have a very comfortable home base. The downside of this mission that wasn't talked about yet is that this mission encourages some pretty high rates of ties. If you can get your 10 points every turn and then hold your home field, that's a 45 on primary. That's a pretty darn achievable thing for a lot of people, regardless of the state of the game, while going first. So at the end of the day, I feel like it really just gives the person going second a major lease on life. If they don't hold a lot of that primary early on, they concede a lot of ground. But if they don't, like, you're both going to get like 45 if you're playing a fairly even game.
I don't see the benefit of that though. Like what's the upside
I'm saying it's a problem. It's another problem with it. Okay. Is that it encourages all these ties because just you score a lot.
No, I mean like giving the person who goes second a lease on life. Like I feel like that's one of the critical like decisions you face when you play 40K is when to take risks to try to hold on to primary, how to try to like reconcile that while you're being pressured if you go second, but then also having the end of game scoring, like on a standard mission like take and hold, you can come back and get some kind of a primary swing later on depending on how much your opponent pressures you. This one is just like, oh, if you go second, you can just sit back. Like the game that was played today in the War Room was an excellent example of this, where Richard went first with Admech, got behind enemy lines for I think 5 on turn 1, and capture enemy outpost. He scored both of those on turn 1, shoved Nick in the locker, gave him like 5, 5, 0, 10 on primary, and just annihilated him on the board state, and then Nick went second, so he lost by 1 point. Like, what? Richard played way better. When you do that to your opponent, you should be punishing their points, and this is a huge get-out-of-jail-free card for no reason at all other than we need to have a mission that incentivizes, an end-of-game scoring. Yeah. I like the principle of it, but the execution is just wrong. There's way too much reward for going second.
I think that the problem with this mission is not in the way that it's written, but in the meta that it's being played in. In that most armies right now have too much stuff for this to be the mission. I think if we played this in like early 9th, when like everything was getting slaughtered and like people got actually tabled, this mission totally works. But like, I don't know about you, dude. I know I play squirrely armies, but like, I don't know the last time I got tabled in 10th. Like, even while getting spanked.
Yeah, hasn't been for a while.
That's not real. And as a result of that, like, it just gives you the bonus, right? The idea of, oh, let me go and push for this tabling and just really get him, that seems really cool, but like, that's not a realistic goal for anything in the game right now. Because this wants to exist in a meta where it basically says, hey, what it's trying to counter isn't, hey, you went first and pressured. What it's trying to counter is, hey, you tried to win the race to 100. Right? That's what this should be for, is for, hey, you're just trying to sit it over there, score or more, score 100 points and then call it. Well, I also get 100 points, baby. What are you going to do about that? And maybe I chipped you down to like 96 or whatever. I don't know. It's not great. It really isn't. I think it goes over Purge the Foe and Sites of Power for me because, like, at the end of the day, it's still fundamentally playing 40k, whereas playing a flash mob of mine's talking about make it deadlier. Yeah, absolutely, Kim. Absolutely. Bring back my Sporocyst. Let me do like 30 mortal wounds to Be'lakor when he tries to fly across the table. Yeah, not a fan.
All right, shall we move on to take and hold? I feel like we've beaten priority targets to death. Where do you want to put them? Where would you put them?
Prios, I don't know, it feels weird to speak so disparagingly of it and to be like it's still better than Purge the Foe and Sights. It doesn't feel like it's in the same tier as Purge the Foe and Sights to me is the thing.
Do you think it's worse?
No, I just feel like it's so different.
We're talking about the quality of the mission, so it can be of the similar quality for different reasons.
Yeah, I know. I don't. Yeah, I guess it's kind of in the same category. All right.
Is it better than Purge? We can rearrange the tiers once we're done.
Yeah.
Take and hold is S tier. Absolutely agree. We don't even really need to talk about this one. Classic, hold 1, hold 2, hold 3. Nice and easy. Nothing really about it. I don't think anyone ever complains about this mission. It's just great.
Yeah. Play Warhammer. Cool.
Hold objectives. Get rewarded for taking the board. Get primary points if you get shoved in the locker.
Get over it. Yeah. Cool. Great mission. Cool.
Supply drop. Goofy ass supply drop.
This is where it's time for some hot takes. I love supply drop.
I love supply drop as well, dude. Oh man.
We're gonna get people mad about this. I think that supply drop is so cool because it rewards really big dynamic swings in the game by fighting really hard over something that matters a lot.
You also know about those swings immediately. Like, you have to deploy your army.
In deployment.
Yeah, you have to know what's going to happen. You don't know which objectives are important until after you've deployed your army. But then once that is resolved, you can play the whole game with that knowledge, which is really cool. I wish this mission, maybe like if the late game swings maybe weren't quite so big, and maybe there was a couple points for holding your home field. I think that would improve it a little bit. That's my opinion. I'm totally fine without that, but that's just how I would personally improve it. But I agree that this is an awesome mission. I wish we played this on like Crucible of Battle and Sweeping Engagement all day.
Yeah. I would give you 2 for your home field and cut the turn 5 to 12 instead of 15, and I think that would be excellent.
Behind Battleground in Australian Horde meta?
Yep, absolutely. Fantastic mission.
Agreed.
Really fun stuff. Also, the fact that like it has the potential to deal with the going second problem really well. In that, if you have if you basically have to only hold one objective, right? Part of the problem on Prios is like, as a Horde player, I gotta say, if I get to go second and I'm like, cool, I've got 20 Gargs that are just gonna be chilling in reserves because you killed them. Top 5, I spend a CP, I ingress them. Bottom 5, they auto advance 6 and fire and fade from somewhere, anywhere on the table. I just have to find 3 objectives to hold. Like, it doesn't matter where they are, it's kind of whatever. And there's no way bottom 5, if we played a good game, that you're holding all of those.
Supply drop?
No, I'm talking about one of the priority targets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, by contrast, in supply drop, you know where I have to go. You get to set up one fortress there and say, hey, you're not taking this from me, bottom 5. And we'll see if you're right. That's awesome. Way better. Way better at a version of what priority targets is trying to accomplish. All right. I think it's time for
the ritual, baby.
Tell us how the ritual works, Lucas.
So the ritual is the other mission where you have to do mission actions. Basically, the way it works is you and your opponent will take turns. Every turn you can set up one new objective marker in the midfield, exactly 9 inches from one other objective marker. It can't be within 6 inches of other objective markers. So basically the way this works is you can set them up close to 9 inches to each other, but each objective has to be 9 inches from one other one exactly. And it can't be closer than 6. So after you set up the first one, each other objective marker can be between 6 and 9 inches if you want to. And then from there, you make a new objective every single turn if you're playing the game. And every midfield objective is worth 5 victory points, and the person at the end of the game scores up to 15 victory points at the end instead of in their command phase. So it's a little like supply drop in that you only score for midfields. And there's like a big go first advantage because you get to like dictate where the objectives are being placed a lot more. But there's some kind of fun interactivity between you and your opponent. How do you feel?
It also really encourages you to play like just outside of your deployment zone, right? As opposed to some of these where you need to play in the center. This is like the most standoffish, I'm going to run up this far and no further and see what you're going to do about it kind of situation.
How do you feel about the ritual?
I think that the ritual gets way more hate than it deserves. I think that it's a really good example of a mission that incentivizes a very specific sort of playstyle and build, but doesn't massively punish you for playing something else. If you're running big bricks of elite infantry, they don't need to charge turn 1. They're probably not charging. They miss out on their advance roll, and they spawn an objective instead, and they camp the hell out of it. Cool. Different way to approach it. I think it incentivizes a lot of interesting stuff with the way it interacts with cleanse. To be clear, you cannot cleanse an objective on the same turn that you spawn it. Fun fact. Some people, including us, thought this for a while. You don't check the control of an objective until the end of a phase, so you won't be able to cleanse, as there won't have been a phase to end at which, because the objective shows up at the end of the turn. So the end of the fight phase has already passed. So I think it's really cool. I think people really don't like it because it's logistically difficult to set up.
Which is fair. It can be obnoxious to play. Like, don't get me wrong.
It's way better on TTS, I'll tell you that much. When you can just be like, there's your objective thing over here. But a lot of people end up using chips instead of mats because placing a mat under a bunch of models is awkward, and the chip is less so. But I think it is not nearly as bad as people make it out to be.
Okay.
What do you think?
How do you feel about Bush's Beans tier? Is that trolling given that we have 3 other kind of like staple missions down here in Art of War?
Hot take? I don't think so. I think that
I don't think so either.
Of those.
I like the ritual. Like conceptually, and maybe it requires a little bit of refinement. And there's definitely some like unhealthy play patterns that kind of devolve from it. Like one of the worst things in the world is like you spawn going like in one direction and your opponent does the same thing, and then you just like tail out and no one can test each other's primary, and like you guys are just holding your spawned objectives ad infinitum. Like that's kind of annoying. But if there's any degree of like interactivity around the map, like I feel like one of the best missions to play this on is actually sweeping engagement, just because the front of engagement is so wide, and it's very easy to like if your opponent starts going down one tail of their deployment with the spawned objectives, you can kind of like intercept them because you can deploy so much of your army around that flank. I think that's really cool. So I like the ritual. I think it can safely go in Bush's Beans tier. I don't think it's as good as Scorched Earth, just because Scorched Scorched Earth, Jesus Christ, is such a staple, like, reliable mission. That's where I'd put it. How do you feel?
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I was worried I was going to get more pushback from people, you and others, on this, but yeah, I think that TOs don't put in the pack because it's logistically messy and people play it wrong, and there's issues with that. But I think that if you both know what you're doing, I think it's a very reasonable mission that we should play more often. We should play more. Let's do this in the next bit rep we do. Let's play the ritual. See what happens. I haven't played it very much recently because it's a mess, and people don't play it in tournaments. But I think it's a good mission. Tanner says it causes ties. Cool. I don't care. All right. It's time for the most yeah. Great. Cool. Servo Skulls is bad.
This mission fucking sucks. Cool in concept. Fun that it's haha football mission, but guys, this mission blows a fat load of shit.
I think that the biggest problem with this mission is the logistics of it, honestly, more than anything else. Because the specifics of where a 40mm chip is after moving 6 inches several times while getting bumped around by a bunch of nonsense is terrible. I feel like this mission should be like, I see drinking games that are like this a lot, where you're both trying to accomplish a task and there's like a shot glass on what looks like a hopscotch grid or something. It's like a number line. And every time you accomplish the task, the drink moves down on the line. And every time your opponent accomplishes the task, it moves up.
There's like a pre-planned path for it. So
once it gets all like the way number down, they have to drink.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I interrupted you. Finish your thought.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah. If Servo Skulls were, hey, you hold it, cool, it appears on the next line down the track, great. But the fact that it's like, oh, I could go in any direction and I have to avoid the walls and I have to avoid model bases, like it's a mess.
Yeah. The number of times I've seen people be like, wait, if I've kicked it 3 times and you've kicked it twice, so by definition, doesn't there have to be a spot where I can have it within 6? And the opponent's like, well, it looks like you're 6.3 right now, you fucking drog. Like, it's just so annoying. I hate this mission. It's so bad. Yeah. If you want to, it's a fun mission to goof around with your friends if you're just trying to play a casual, like, haha, funny mission. But it is, I don't see a world in which it's better than Sights of Power. I'm sorry, Steve, no, you're just wrong.
Steve is right that it does create some of the funniest interactions. Right?
It is. Like, it is funny. It's funny, but it's a terrible competitive mission.
There are no midfield objectives. Hilarious. Like that's a great. I like that joke a lot. But yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Also, if Justin Curtis tells me one more to my face that I can kick a Servo Skull off the table, I might kick him off the table because.
Okay, how do we feel about the organization in the? Do we feel like this is... I feel like the only one that I would personally dispute is this Art of War tier. I think Vital Ground is better than Supply Drop. I think Scorched Earth is better than the Ritual.
Probably.
Priority Target, Purge the Foe, Sights of Power?
Maybe swap Purge and Prios.
Purge and Prios. Am I stupid? Like this.
Yeah.
How does this work? There we go.
Like that.
Okay, I buy that.
Maybe.
I like Sights of Power the least of these 3. I think it has the most promise to become better. But until then, it is definitely the worst of the 3. And I would rather play Purge the Foe than Priority Targets. That's for goddamn sure. I hate Priority Targets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is about right. Grab your screen grabs, boys. Make fun of us on the internet. The Ritual is a cool mission. You can't.
Why would they make fun of us? We're objectively right.
Yeah. Well, it just shows how wrong they are when they, I want to get to make fun of them back. So,
post a bad mission. Is it mission rules next before we go to the fun one to end with?
It's time for let's do the funny rules and we'll do secondaries last. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Time to plow through this quickly because I don't know what any of these are.
Sounds good. So this is the addition to the rules pack that was the absolute craziest. Was that every single mission, if you're not playing Chilling Reign because you're not a coward, has some funny, goofy addition. Some of these are very small. Some of them are very large. Most of them don't see play, honestly, which I think is a crying shame. We tried really hard at Cali Cup to incorporate a lot of these, particularly to try to shore up some of the weaknesses of some of the primaries, and I think they can do a pretty good job at that. But I also think that in general we should just play them more. I think they're cool. So I'm excited to see all of them. we're definitely going to have to remember what some of them do. I hope you have the deck nearby.
I don't have the deck, but I have the pictures that Andy sent us on day -10 of 10th edition.
Hilarious.
Art of War.
Deck. But yeah.
Sorry, I'm having to remake this every time because I'm technologically illiterate.
That's all good.
What's the D tier one? Why'd you say we knew that? Shoots gun. The correct thing to say there was, no, you're not. You're a genius.
You can be a genius bushes. And also technically illiterate. You know, you can be Sean Naden. Yeah, Steve's got you. It's shoots gun, silly. So let's see what these funny rules are and see how they stack up against each other. So, we're starting with a doozy.
I feel like we're gonna have some disagreements, my brother in Christ, because I hate a lot of these ones. All right, tell us about Chosen Battlefield.
Chosen Battlefield's player place objectives. This is one of the things that all the Eurotrash used to tell us was a lost skill set that we should bring back to the game. And then we brought it back to the game, and everyone was like, you guys were wrong the whole time.
Yeah, this
was
terrible.
Never a good idea. This is absolutely awful. I hate player place objectives. Almost always, one of two things happens. Either someone does something really stupid with them and bets the game on winning the defender roll-off, and either does or doesn't, neither of which are fun. Or you basically just recreate the base layout, but you didn't bother to measure it this time. So it's slightly irregular for no reason. Terrible. You know what would be funny, though? Chosen Battlefield servo skulls. That's what we should play. We should play Chosen
we're moving on. I don't want to think about this anymore.
Line up all the footballs.
No, this is going at the bottom of Shoots Gun tier. And if you disagree with me, you are in the room next to me. I will kill you.
And kick goals turn one. I think it's a great
Scrambler fields. You can't infiltrate, scout, deep strike, do anything related to it. You can't walk onto objectives. They're impassable terrain.
That's incorrect. I think that this is a good rule. I think that this on the ritual is cringe. That was silly.
Agreed.
But I think that in general, this is a really cool thing. I play a lot of deep strike heavy armies. Keeping them honest, good idea. I would love it if this were a little bit less punishing. Like, you can't deep strike onto the center objective or your opponent's home field or something. It becomes a little bit much that it's all of them all the time. I don't know. I'm probably just being whiny. It's a fine mission.
I like it in theory. I think it's solidly Bush's Beans tier.
Yeah, mainly because we're going to be struggling to get good high tier stuff here. Pretty good is we'll take it.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can guess what these are. Minefields is whenever you advance, if you roll a 6, you take a mortal wound?
Yes.
S tier, baby. That's incredible.
This is going as Shoots Gun tier. This is so miserably if you think the rad cohort was obnoxious to keep track of and the rule didn't do anything, this is the epitome of that. Like, in this very fringe niche case, you get punished for doing some basic thing, and the punishment isn't that bad, and it's obnoxious to keep track of. Like, this is so useless of a rule.
This strictly exists so that Sisters players can advance their castigators in little circles in their DZ before shooting out once they're +1 to hit.
Yo, dude, they can auto-advance 6 because they're Sisters. You spend your 6 on a Miracle Dice.
You spend a 6 on a Miracle Dice, and you get +1 to hit.
You don't shoot that turn and spend a 6 so that you can get +1 to hit on a future turn. PogChamp. This mission rule exists so that the Chosen Battlefield can be worse than it.
Yeah, so that it's not lonely down in Shoots Gun tier.
Delayed reserves.
I literally don't know what this does. Is this like on a? Is this like the old rules where like turn 2 you only come in on a 4-up, and then turn 3 on a? But you gotta come in turn 3. How does
in this mission, until the start of the 3rd battle round, each time a reserves or strat reserves unit wishes to arrive on the battlefield, the controlling player must make a reserves roll for it. To do so, that player rolls a d6. On a 3-up, that unit arrives on the battlefield. Otherwise, the reserve roll fails and the unit does not arrive this turn and immediately dies. No, that last part's not true.
Wait, but what happens if it's turn 3 and you fail?
No, until the start of the 3rd battle round. So basically, on turn 1 or 2, when you want to bring a unit on from reserves, You have to roll a
Yeah.
die, and on a 3-up, it can arrive.
Okay. Stop it.
This is
That's
worse than
worse than
Minefields. This is worse than
We got rid of this
Minefields.
after we got rid of this when 8th edition came out. For
At least Minefields is relatively benign, right? Like, this is actively harmful to half the armies in the game.
I like it in theory. Like, I would love it if it like only applied to units that were under 150 points or something. Where it was like, hey, here's all my cheeky nonsense. Like, how funny is that?
Harry, it says each time a unit in reserves wants to arrive on the battlefield. So if you go and do reserve on turn 1, there is a 1/3 chance you cannot come back in that turn.
What exactly happens to things that have to come in? Great question. Don't bother asking.
You get stuck in purgatory.
Yeah, have fun, dude. You get the in card teleporting into into reserves.
All right, cool. Maelstrom of Battle. Is this the one that's like 500 paragraphs long? Oh, in this mission, shuffle the remaining mission rule cards together before drawing 2 new ones.
Oh, this is draw 2. S tier. This is great.
If either of these new mission rule cards is Chilling Rain, discard that mission rule card and draw 2 more.
Let's go!
You get 3 mission rules.
This is great. This is fantastic. Yeah, conceptually awesome idea.
Yeah, like,
absolutely.
Sure, if you're playing a goofy, fun game with your friends, then Maelstrom of Battle is excellent. Do not play this in tournament play, or I'll beat your ass.
But I love the idea that, like, the rule is Maelstrom of Battle. Okay, so what are the rules? You draw them at the table. Like, I think that would be so funny.
Let's figure out the rules. All right, Vox static time. In this
Vox
mission,
static. Let me see if I can get this.
Go for it.
Vox static is it? Does CP reroll and burn an objective cost an extra CP?
Yep.
This is a really cool rule. I like this rule a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's special rule.
I think it's A tier as well. It does not impact the game all that much, but like it'll still come up. And I think if we played it more, we'd be more accustomed to. I feel like the main detractor from this rule is you forget about it, and then when you're like, "I'll just bank a CP to reroll the charge," and then you get to your charge phase, and your opponent's like, "Can't you not do that?" And you're like, "Fuck, my entire plan just went out the toilet, down the toilet."
Or realistically, you burn an objective for a CP, and then at the end of the battle round, your opponent's like, "Wait, didn't you only have 1 CP? Doesn't that cost 2?" And you're like, "Damn, that sucks."
I feel like if we just played this more, it would be a lot more fun. I like this one. A tier.
I really love the idea of you can't Vex CP reroll anymore. That was the only thing that was silly. It was like, oh man, what if you pull?
No, you can. You can.
Oh, you couldn't freebie it for a while, but you can now. Okay, yeah, totally. It's very funny, the idea of double vecting a 2 CP reroll into 4 CP to reroll a charge. I think it's hilarious.
Sure, dude. Sweep and clear, baby.
Of course, everyone gets sticky objectives.
Yep.
Cool. That's a good mission rule. I think that's really interesting. I think that's like high B tier. Better than Scrambler Fields?
I think it's worse than Scrambler Fields, in my opinion.
Similar kind of level. I'm with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little boring. It's kind of silly, but like
it's not the most exciting thing.
It's benign.
I think it changes the game to the correct degree of like, oh, that's the thing that we can think about. That'll make some serious changes, but also like, okay, yeah, cool. Like.
In general, locking off objectives is bad. Good. So
yeah, exactly. You don't want to do it anyway.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Supply lines. Is this hidden supplies is the split? Supply lines is draw 3, pick 2.
Nope.
No, is that secret intel? Supply lines is always draw a 3rd, even if you're playing fixed.
In this mission, if a player controls the objective marker in their own DZ at the start of their command phase, on a 4-up they gain a CP.
Yeah, this is a great rule. This particularly pairs excellently with things where your home field is very disincentivized. Makes that a little bit more interesting. Great rule. I think it's an A tier rule.
Yeah, I would put this in B tier for one specific reason, which is, CP are so important in this game because you start with 0 now. Big pivot from 9th edition. It can feel really bad if your opponent just hits a couple more 4-ups than you and all of a sudden has like twice as many resources as you on any particular turn, right? Like if the game is decided in the first couple of turns, depending on like the matchup, it can feel really bad if your opponent's playing with 6 CP and you have 4. That's all
But
I'm
like
gonna
that
say.
assumes that like neither of you are playing with anything else that gets CP, and neither of you are discarding tactical cards. Like there's other ways to get command points.
That's
This
fair.
doesn't go beyond those. I don't
Sure,
think it's that big of a deal.
I'll
But
put
yeah,
it behind box static. You convinced me.
you can if you want to drop it to top of B, I'm also cool with that. But I think it's better than Scrambler Fields and worse than Box Static.
That's fine.
Cool. Okay. Targets of opportunity. Oh, this is the
This is
have
the
three all
real
the time.
the paragraph. Yes.
Yeah.
If you're using tactical, you draw to 3 cards. If you're using fixed, you also draw a tactical card.
This is very cool, but it
Cool
has a
in
lot of
concept.
issues.
In general, it just means that you score 50 on secondary. No, 40 on
Yeah.
secondary.
Yeah, say hopefully not 50. It also like means you get to see every single card as long as you discard one of them.
Which
Is
I kind of like it, honestly.
I think yeah.
It means those last couple turns where usually at the, like, you know, on turn 4 or 5, you get to a point where you're like, you know, there's I have so few units left on the board. There's only so many things I can plan for. Whereas on turn 5, if you know you're going to see 3 out of the 4 remaining cards, then you can really plan for your remaining points and like actually like scrap for those points, which can be really fun. The only bummer to that is usually at 40 points by that juncture. So in concept, I love this. What are we on? See, targets of opportunity. Where did it go? Oh, it's in the middle. I like this in concept. I personally would put it like here in Bush's Beans.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
If, you know, in concept, I think it's up here in S or A tier, but in execution, I think it's down here.
Yeah, for sure.
Secret Intel.
Secret Intel. That is the other draw 3, but it's draw 3 pick 2. And it doesn't affect fixed.
Yep.
Cool. This is better.
Yep.
It's just better. Put that in A tier.
Better
Honestly,
than box static.
Tier.
Yes. Agreed, actually.
Yeah, it's great. It's really fun. It can make the game, it can make secondaries a lot less punishing. It can make secondaries a little bit, what do you call that? The momentum can get a little too high and get kind of steamrolling. But I think it's great. I think it's really cool. And it's a thing that should be used more.
Agreed. Hidden supplies. Split the middle objective into 2. Move it toward a no man's land corner.
This is actually S tier. This is fantastic.
I agree. I think it's better than these two because we play with it and we still like it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It makes Hammer and Anvil and Dawn of War way better, just because they're on diagonals. It gives some asymmetry. Asymmetry is so good in this game. I think it's less good on the diagonally ones, but yeah, on the straight edge, love it. Absolutely love it.
Agreed. Chilling Rain.
That has to be the most Art of War tier thing I've ever heard of.
What the fuck? Okay, explain yourself.
I mean, just in terms of like Art of War.
What do you mean?
Like we're just playing Warhammer at this point. Like, oh no, nothing funny, no goofy stuff, just regular.
I think that makes it big a base, dude.
I think that's lame. We should put something in Art of War tier. This 4S tier is too.
I'm honestly, I think that means that Secret Intel goes down to the top of A tier. Like this? Thoughts?
Secret Intel is draw 3, keep 2?
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's probably right.
Or we could demote our meme Maelstrom of Battle to A tier. I don't know. I like this one here just for the meme.
I like it there. Yeah, it's a good meme.
These two absolutely belong here in this order.
All right,
Do you disagree?
No. I mean, yes, but no. That's fine. Let's drop Sweep and Clear to C tier then. I want to put something in there.
Sure. I'm surprised we have a bunch of stuff in A and B tier. I thought this was going to be C and D tier just crammed full of shit.
This is the thing. We have this perception they're all terrible. They're just not.
I think the thing is a lot of them are fun to play with and cool rules and concept, but we just don't play with them because a lot of them can be awkward for tournament play. I mean, a lot of them meaning the ones in B through D tier, basically. I think all of the A and S tier ones, other than Maelstrom Battle, should be considered for tournament play.
Yeah, I think those 5 should be played. I think Targets of Opportunity and Scrambler Fields can also see play. I mean, Colby said himself, like, Scrambler Fields is a really fun thing to throw on a mission that you're trying to make a little bit more complicated. Yeah, absolutely. But I think Hidden Supplies, Secret Intel, Vox Static supply lines should get played more than they do, especially Vox Static and supply lines.
I just don't get the hate for Chilling Reign. People that say, "Oh, no rule is so boring, it's so bad." I'm like, then why is it played on every mission and everyone likes playing these missions? For the most part.
I think it's just because no one complains.
I love Chilling Reign. I think it's excellent. I think Chilling Reign and Hidden Supplies, considering we play them those, and I think there's a good reason for that. They're really good.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Cool. So that's those are our rules there. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is hard to complain about a rule that doesn't exist.
Get your screenshots, idiots. This is going down momentarily. And we'll move on to the secondary tactical deck, baby. Let's go. And I'm sure we'll talk about fixed as we go through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here's what we'll do this for now. Tell us about them secondaries, Tyler.
It is 10th edition. We have cards again. It's been a minute since 7th when we were playing Maelstrom of War. Very excited to have it back. And I gotta say, this has been shockingly well received. Shockingly well received. The amount of bitching and moaning and complaining from people when this was announced that it could not possibly be done right, that it was a bad mechanic, that would make the games come down to stupid card draws and more randomness, they have abated. Sometimes you get a bad draw. It's a thing that happens. You get over it. It's part of the game. I think that these make the game a lot more fun and a lot more dynamic, and they change you from having such a static game plan. They, I think, are the biggest thing that has made 10th edition feel like a very dynamic game. I think they might be one of the biggest successes of the edition. And they balance things out really well. The ability to cycle through them for command points or to cycle through them to receive command points, fantastic rules. Fantastic rules. Get a bad draw, nope, that was a CP. Love it.
Yeah, the fact that you can get rewarded for getting bad cards is the biggest win, in my opinion, right? Like, it's not that punishing if you draw a bad card.
Yeah. I didn't mention this in the special rules section, but a lot of the draw threes, the draw 3 keep 3 and the draw 3 pick 2 are like funny in that if you're used to playing tactical, you'll be shocked by how few CP you have because you're used to burning a card or two. So not doing that will mess with your economy. So if you play those, be careful. Think about if you actually want 2 or 3 victory points for something small, or if you want a command point, because sometimes you want a CP.
It's time, ladies and gents. Let's talk about these secondaries.
Let's talk a little bit about how we're going to rate these, because I think that one of the things that I am going to dock things for, that I think not everyone would instinctively, is I'm definitely going to dock things for being too easy to score.
Agreed. Yep, I think this first secondary mission is a great example of that. So we will kind of rate... Again, this is going to be very subjective. All the ones we've done are very subjective. All these tier lists we've done so far. Yeah, you're right. But so we're gonna rate on a mix of, it needs to be a proper difficulty to achieve. Or sorry, the victory point total that you get for achieving the secondary should feel proportionate to how difficult it is to achieve. And I feel like some secondaries do a lot better job of this than others. Also, how fun it is to achieve, the amount of play around your opponent can have with regard to the card. And also we'll probably talk a little bit about how some of these cards play with fixed, because some of them are very dominant, in the, people build to play with some of these cards, so it's worth mentioning them when it comes to fixed.
Yep. So,
cool.
Extend Battle Lines, I think we're good to go. I think Extend Battle Lines is the best example of, man, this shit is way too easy for 5 whole points. Hold your home field and a midfield objective. That's an Art of War tier objective if I've ever seen one.
Agreed. I think it's at the bottom of bushes at the best. At top of Art of War. It's cool in theory, and especially in the late game when things get really scrappy, if your opponent's taking over your backfield, it's going to be like, oh, I didn't achieve Extend Battle Lines, I'm going to commit seppuku. But, like, it feels bad in the early game. You draw this on turn, like, your opponent draws this on turn 1, you're like, well, awesome. 5 victory points for doing nothing. Sick.
Yeah, very bad. No prisoners, I think, is...
I'd put it in A tier.
I was thinking B tier, but
I think this rewards you adequately for killing units in your opponent's army. Right? Like, if
the fact that you need 3 for 5 feels pretty good.
And the 5 isn't even, like, that many points. I feel like this is a good example of a secondary, like, or a dynamic in the game that punishes MSU appropriately, right? Like, if you take a bunch of units, your opponent should be rewarded for killing those units to a certain extent. Not to the extent that Purge the Foe rewards you, but no prisoners is appropriate. Like, you took a bunch of garbage, once per game I'll get 5 points for killing a bunch of that garbage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's going to be at the bottom of A tier.
Yes, I agree with that assessment. I really like it as, especially when it comes up late game, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got just scraps, no prisoners. That guy's at 1 wound. That guy's at 1 wound, and my 1 unit is right over. Like, we can do it, boys. You know, it's a really fun rallying cry, and you're almost never killing 3 units without either trying really hard or punishing someone for playing super MSU. So yeah, I agree. It's an A tier 1 for sure. Overwhelming force. I think this is giga-based. I absolutely love this secondary. I love that it requires you to do something that is kind of in the name of the game, right? Like kill shit on objectives, kind of a thing you generally want to do. Also rewards you reasonably, 3 points for 1, 5 points for 2. But the thing that I love so much about this mission, what is it, Lucas? What's the best part of Overwhelming Force?
The play around.
The counterplay, baby. You love the counterplay.
Yeah. My favorite thing in the world is when, like, you get your round 1 game, right? And it's against someone who maybe isn't quite to your skill level, and you draw Overwhelming Force, and they're like, well, 5 victory points, easy, like, you're a fucking idiot if you can't score this. And I'm like, dude, there were so many opportunities for you to play around this card. The amount of play arounds that you can achieve with this card, even just thinking about it once or twice, you get that rush, like when you play around Overwhelming Force, you're like, I won't put this guy on the objective, there's really no point, and you could draw Overwhelming Force, and then next turn they draw, and you're like, get shit on! Let's go! I love Overwhelming Force. It's such a sick secondary, and it rewards you appropriately for killing stuff on objectives. I really love it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you can play around, but that also has a real cost. Like, you want to stand on objectives. This isn't like, oh man, I just remember to do the thing. This is, I make a sacrifice. It's so good. It's great.
Yep.
Cool.
Do you want to tackle all of the... My question is, do you want to tackle all of the tactical ones before we go to the mixed?
That's a great idea.
Tactical?
That's a great idea. So let's jump to Secure No Man's Land.
I like this one.
It's good.
I think it's fun. Yeah. I like that there's a small reward for doing the minimum, but also going above and beyond, not above and beyond, but like doing more rewards you with more points. It's got a little bit of the extend battle line syndrome of if you draw this in the early game, it's an easy 5 points and it's a complete no-brainer. But once you get to the mid game, unlike extend battle lines, which is still basically automatic, Secure No Man's Land can be like, oh, I got a 2. Bummer. So I like Secure No Man's Land. I don't think it's one of the best in the game. I think it's like low A, top B tier.
I like it in B tier.
I think it's fine. It's a good secondary.
One of the only things I don't like is that, for some reason, none of us can get Secure No Man's Land and extend battle lines straight in our heads. So many times I've had this happen where an opponent is like, cool, Secure No Man's Land, great. No Man's Land, home field, cool, 5 points. And it's like, oh, wait, no, that's extend battle lines, or vice versa.
I don't know. How are you guys mixing that up? This is the easiest thing in the world to keep straight.
I don't know. Dude.
You move from your home field and you extend into the mid board. Extend battle lines.
Storm Hostile is fixed. Can we take its fix? Defend Stronghold. I think this is A tier. I think this is a really good secondary.
The only reason I would rate it lower than A tier is it's very bland. But I mean, I guess I can't complain, given that I put no prisoners in A tier and argued very adamantly for that. But I'm never upset about drawing Defend Stronghold. I'm never upset when my opponent draws it. I think it rewards you appropriately for guarding your home field, and there's also some play around. Fair enough. I could see it in A tier.
I really like the fact that you have to decide whether you're burning it or not before you know if you accomplished it or not. That's really cool.
Because if you hold on to defend and then your opponent breaks your defend, it's like, ah, fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not only do I not score 3 points, I have to try again to score 3 points next turn. Yuck. Really
gross.
cool.
Yep.
Attempting target. Um, A tier? Maybe B tier?
Yeah, I like it in A tier.
Yeah.
Again, a little bit of the I think extend battle line, secure no man's land, and tempting target all kind of have that like it's free 5 points if you go first, or sorry if you draw it early type of thing. But especially like once the game starts developing, it can be really fun to be like, most of the time when this is really hard to achieve, it just gets turned into a CP. But it's sometimes fun to kind of try to find creative plays to take an objective from your opponent. Especially because
Yeah.
it really is like if you take this one, it'll be a 10 point swing, right? Because it's 5 points of primary and the 5 point tempting target. I like it. It's okay.
I I really like it in that it can incentivize you to say, stay there. When you're like, man, you've got that unit, you got your Terminator brick on that objective, it's held down, they're rearing up to run into the midboard and just abandon that objective, and you're like, tempting. Don't leave. I think that's a really fun play. But yeah, and Harry's right, or I always forget, is this Harry or is this
That's
Charlie?
Harry.
That's Harry. Yeah, Harry is always has a really good point of it. It's gonna be very fun to be like, hey, tempting, right here on the objective, right in front of my aberrants.
Yeah, fair enough. I like tempting. I think it's better than defend stronghold just because it's more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable assessment. Cool.
It could even be better than we can reorder this at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
Capture enemy outpost. I
S tier.
love Capture Enemy Outpost, dude.
S tier,
Capture
baby.
Enemy Outpost is giga based. I don't think it's as good as Overwhelming
Absolutely.
Force because it's less interactive. And, based on when you draw, it can promote some feels bad scenarios. But when it does happen and your opponent, can't do enough about it, they're like, you know what? You took that from me. Fair play. Like, you took my home objective. That should be rewarded with a lot of points.
I absolutely love the desperate turn 5. Do I top deck capture enemy? I
Yep,
think that is
agreed.
one of the most fun things in the world of card randomness because it's like, man, if I draw this, I could go for a desperate play, and if it works out, I could get 3 more points than if I drew something less good.
Yep.
I think it's awesome. It's great. It rewards you appropriately. Everyone knows it's in the deck, so everyone has to always be ready for it. Great mission.
Investigate signals.
I think this is one that we're going to controversially rate way higher than everyone else thinks of this objective.
Sure. Yes. I don't know. I love investigate signals. I don't think it's in Giga base tier, but I think it is definitely promotes the same kind of fun interactivity that tempting target does. A, because you can plan around it. B, because your opponent can prevent you from doing it by deep striking and playing in the corners of the board. The corners of the board are so rarely interacted with. In 90% of games, you just ignore them. Both Homer and Signals rewarding you very heavily for going to the corners of the board, I think is really cool. So I personally would put Signals, and also I love how much variability there is, right? Like if you just get one corner in the early game, sure, 2 points, that's fine. Or you can just melt it down to a CP if you really don't want to get those points. 4 points, nice, solid secondary score. 6 points is super dope and feels great. And if you get the coveted 8 points, you feel like a Greek god. So I personally really like Investigate Signals. I think it's better than No Prisoners just because it's cool and you know.
I love how much have you talked about that? I feel like you haven't talked about how cool it is to set up for this.
I mean, I mentioned it, but yeah, most of the reason people don't score well on this is they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it's one of the easiest ones to think about, right? Because there's a defined space. It's 9 inches from the corner, so you add your unit's movement to 9 inches, and then you can just have that. It's so easy to plan for.
It's
And also,
very
people often don't screen the corners of the board because they don't tend to be very important. So you can easily just be like, hey, 5 scouts, back there, signals, 3 Nurglings, signals, 2 points. I'll spend 35 points to get 2 victory points.
yeah.
I love investigate signals.
Pulling off an 8 on signals feels so good, dude.
Even a
Feels
6 feels
so
super
good.
sick.
Yeah, it's great. It's clever stuff. I'm a big fan. Cool.
All right, all of these are now. Let me see if I can like scroll down here and not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So area denial is the last non-mixed one.
Okay, area
Area
denial
denial. I
is good.
like area denial quite a bit.
It's good. It's very good. The only thing that holds area denial back is the clown shoes second part of it.
Oh, where like there's the weird. If your
If they're wholly
opponent,
within 6 but not within 3, then you don't need to be anywhere and you get the points.
I feel, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say I feel like that's just a typo, but like given that they haven't fixed that, I have to rate the card based on how it is written. Yes, that is stupid as hell. Frankly, if it didn't have that, I think Area Denial is really cool and would easily be at the top of A tier, if not in low S tier. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe I would just really like this card. Part of the reason I like it is it's one of the ones that doesn't often, sometimes doesn't feel super play aroundable. Like I don't feel like even the best players out there are really setting up to play around area denial very often. Like sometimes, you can block your opponent off from getting onto objectives so they can't cleanse, or you'll stand in the corner so they can't deep strike and get investigate. You'll not put units on objectives so they can't get key overwhelming force kills. Area denial, I feel like there are times where you just most often you're either like, oh, my opponent happens to have a unit within 6 of the center, guess I have to kill it, or oh, my opponent never went to the center in the first place. I feel like area denial is not played around very much, and I think that makes it really fun and like an area of growth for a lot of players.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the problem is wholly within 6 of the center is so rarely a place you can be at while being in a defensible position. Right? Like either you're an absolute chonk unit that's holding the center objective, or you're like a character maybe behind a wall if you're lucky.
Yeah,
Like
is that a bad thing?
I think it's part of why it's so hard to counterplay. Like I think that if it were within instead of wholly within, that'd be a lot easier to put up some counterplay for. But
Fair.
yeah, I think it's good. I think it's probably yeah, yeah, that feels about right.
I think if they fixed the typo, it would move into A tier, bottom of A
Yes, I
tier.
agree. I'm with you right there.
But for now, I think it can be above Secure No Man's Land. I think it rewards you appropriately. I think there's some counterplay that people really haven't explored very much. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the fixed secondaries. And these will be obviously both in the context of fixed and of tactical, but fixed is definitely part of it. Lucas Troller, I know you love Engage on All Fronts. Tell me all about it.
I think you should talk about the secondary first because I despise it. Engage in all fronts is you hold 3 or 4 quarters of the table. If you are playing tactical, it gives you 3 and 5 victory points respectively. If you are playing fixed, it gives you 2 and 4 victory points respectively.
Yeah. I think that Engage is a really nice secondary in that it is very achievable at slight cost when you draw it as a tactical, and you have to push for that 5, and you're definitely sacrificing something if you're getting it. Really well balanced in that way. In fixed, I think is where it gets really interesting, and where Lucas starts to absolutely fucking hate it, because it makes you play pretty predictably. You have to run in every single turn. That being said, it's absolutely thoughtless compared to a lot of other secondaries. So if you're going to run into every quadrant every turn, you're going to get a lot of points from Engage without having to do a lot else, right? Everything else is standing in a much more restrictive area, such as behind enemy lines, or taking objectives, storm hostile, or requiring you to kill things or do actions. But Engage is the easiest thing to go stand places. If you're a stand places kind of army that's going to be all over the board, I think it's a really cool pick that is highly undervalued. And I think that it's a really well-written secondary because of that. Back in the day when Engage was easy and automatic for everyone, when it was like you do it 4 times and you get maximum secondary points, back in like 8th edition, clown shoes, nonsense. I think that this is probably some of the best place that Engage has been in terms of balance as both a tactical and a fixed secondary. I think that if it were any better as fixed, it would be auto take for too many people.
I agree. I think it is definitely one of the best. I mean, back in the day, this was Recon. Remember Recon?
Oh my god, Recon.
I think Engage is fine. I personally would not rate it above B tier. Um, where would you put it?
I was thinking bottom of A.
Okay, I can stomach top of B tier, my brother.
Deal.
Okay, I do not like this secondary. I think it is very bland, and I get it, Lucas. You put Area Denial and No Man's Land in B tier because you thought they were cool, even though those are the most bland secondaries in the world. You're just a mouth breather mid board player. You're right, but I'm also right, and Engage sucks ass.
Yeah. All right. Up next is Assassination. The worst secondary that should be removed from the game immediately.
Okay, GSA man.
No, Assassinate is one of the only tools that like very intelligently keeps things in check. I think it's really reasonable with the points you get for it. 4 apiece as fixed is not easy to do if your opponent isn't really leaning into their characters. And also, if your plan is go absolutely murder someone and dig out all 5 of their characters from the way back of the table, more power to you, dude. I think Assassinate's a very good fix secondary.
It has a lot of play around. Unlike Bring It Down, right? Like if you're taking Bring It Down with liability, or if you just randomly draw Bring It Down on the turn your opponent has committed vehicles, it can be kind of a feels bad. And it's like difficult to play around. Assassinate, meanwhile, there's some play around with Bring It Down. Don't get me wrong, but Assassinate is definitely like your opponent has the option to play very defensively, and you are pre-committing to killing their characters. You better go do it. I like Assassinate. I think it is in A tier somewhere.
Yep, I think it's better than Prisoners, or at
I
least
agree.
better than Stronghold.
It's definitely not better than Signals. It's
Yeah.
less cool than Signals. Cool. Bring it
All right.
down.
I feel like we should have 2 separate Bring It Downs, one for Tau and one for not Tau.
I feel like we should have one with Sagittars and one without Sagittars.
It doesn't. Sagittars don't affect it.
They have 9 wounds, you fucker!
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, why does that change anything?
My trucks are raging.
As are my Taroks, dude. But I actually don't really care because I only have 4 vehicles. 5 vehicles, I guess. 14 points? That's fine. I don't mind that. Okay. Yeah, bring it down.
It's good. It's good that it's in some way punishes hull spam. I like Bring It Down. I like the way it's stratified. There are some cases where it kind of feels bad. What is a vehicle? So you mentioned Tau, right? Like there are so many vehicles in that faction. The army doesn't function without giving up Bring It Down automatically. That can feel really bad to be like, I'm a Tau player. I give away 20 points in every game I play based on secondaries. That feels horrible. The other thing is some of the stratification for what counts in what category is stupid. That was what I was mentioning, right? Like the fact that a truck, which is equivalent to a Sagittar in basically every single way, gives up 3 points and a Sagittar gives up 2, might not feel like that big of a deal. But let me tell you, the number of times I've wanted to take Bring It Down against Votan when they have 6 vehicles, and it's instead better for people to take Bring It Down against me when I have 5 trucks is stupid as hell. They're basically the same vehicle, and there's 50% more reward for killing a truck than a Sagittar. Rant over.
Yep, I'm with it. I think that Bring It Down is good in principle and poor in execution. I think that we're playing in an edition right now where like the line between what is a vehicle or monster and what is not is real weird. Like Pyrovores being infantry on 80 mil bases. It's very funny. Gaz is infantry right now. Like what's happening? But then like Nundums are vehicles and crisis suits are vehicles.
Yeah, I don't really get it. It's kind of just like GW deciding,
Neurotenant is a
hey,
monster.
this
Yeah.
thing looks like it has an engine. It's a vehicle.
Yeah, it feels like they handed out the vehicle keyword like they wanted Haywire to work against it, and like then there's like very little anti-vehicle as a rule in the game.
Yo, Kim, this is a based take, brother. The Sagittar should be T5, 14 wounds, move 6. Stubby dwarf moment.
Well, that's an option.
All right, where are we putting Bring It Down? Top of B tier?
No. It's definitely not better than Area Denial.
Okay. Above, below No Man's Land?
Uh, no, it's better than No Man's Land. I think it's worse than Engage, though.
Okay,
Yeah, that feels about right.
sure. Let me tell you, I'd be pog champing if Bring It Down didn't exist right now as a brigand enjoyer.
Oh man, go to
You guys
hell.
would be shitting your pants. All right.
Oh wow, that's a crazy thing. With the guard in my GSC list, I can take fixed into you finally. Oh man, Storm. What do you? Why is Storm Hostile going in D tier?
I'm scrolling down so I can grab it. Storm
Oh, I
Hostile
see.
objective.
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Does the thing, is an incredibly cool niche take in as a fixed secondary. I absolutely love it. Do the thing that you want to do, but like you have to go do the thing. Really cool.
I
Forces you
think
to go
it's
stand
I
somewhere.
think it's god awful as a fixed secondary. Like it's cool that it has its like very it's niche and very defined way that it's played, but I feel like if you take Storm Hostile, you're kind of trolling.
I don't think so at all. I think that you are
Really.
accepting that you're getting a 16 at most, which is how it goes sometimes, but you're just getting points for playing the game.
Sure. I
Like,
think there's so much play around if your opponent I mean, I guess that it just introduces a new dynamic, right? Where they're trying to contest it, and you're trying to like put a specific amount of OC on that they can't contest it, which is kind of cool.
yeah, what about zero?
That's fair. Okay, so and I definitely like this as a one that randomly gets drawn during the game.
Yeah, totally. I
So
think
like
it's
A,
yeah,
is it better than
definitely
Assassinate?
better. Yeah.
It's better than Stronghold. I think it's better than Prisoners. I think it's better than Assassinate. I don't think it's good as
Yeah,
Signals.
I agree. I'm with it.
Okay,
All
Cleanse.
right. Cleanse is a great secondary. I think it's a fantastic secondary. I think that as a tactical, it forces you to do something to do multiple actions in the mid board, but rewards you for it. I think that as a fixed, it's a really cool trade off. You can build armies to do it, but it's hard to do. I think fixed is the bottom of S, is cleanse.
This might be controversial, but I think it is an S tier. I think it's at the
Yeah.
bottom of S tier, but I think it's firmly in S tier. It
Yeah.
like rewards you appropriately for being on the mid board and just standing there not shooting your opponent, which is cool. Um, it's
It
also cool that it can
requires
like
you to take shit. Like it's
yes,
kind of storm hostile at the same time half the time.
yes, definitely. Um, your opponent can play around it just by trying to hold objectives better than you, which is cool. Also, you can build fixed plans around it, which is cool, but there isn't a huge reward, unlike some other secondaries we're going to talk about momentarily, which are probably a little too easy.
Yeah.
This one rewards you appropriately, right? 2 points, 4 points, nice. You can max this one if you build for it. You certainly can, but you might not
So
every
we've
time, and
both
that's
done it
okay.
for sure.
I absolutely have.
Hmm.
I like Cleanse. I think it's a fantastic secondary.
Yeah, I agree. It's excellent. Great secondary.
Cool.
Cool.
Behind enemy lines and deploy Homer.
All right. Behind enemy lines. Behind enemy lines, I found out today or yesterday, you can score it while you're freaking battle shocked. I didn't know that. I lost my first game at Slanesh because I failed a battle shock with a unit trying to score behind. That
Bummer,
was a
dude.
bummer. It's a really good secondary. I think it's a crazy risky play to take as fixed, which I really like. It rewards you for doing a thing that's difficult to do, but not by too much. I think it's really good. I think it's probably between Storm Hostile and Assassinate. But I'm
Yep.
open to a lot of other options. Yeah.
I like it somewhere in here.
Yep. That seems reasonable to me.
I'm gonna put it behind Assassinate because I'm a chronic behind enemy lines hater.
That's fine.
We are at this point completely out of space.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
need to knock some things down a little bit.
No, we can
And the
still see the
last,
we can still see the bottom, which is good.
yeah, we're good. We're good.
It
All
is
right.
not appearing on my screen.
There we go.
Deploy teleport Homer. I think this is a great secondary in principle, but way too much of a reward.
Yep.
Especially fixed. I think fixed you should get. I think you should get 2 and 4 victory points. And for tactical, you should probably get. No, maybe tactical. It's fine. Tactical, I think it's fine.
Yeah. It's just way too strong and fixed.
Yeah, mostly just for the middle of the table. I think if you go to your opponent's DZ and not use a unit there to get 4 victory points, that's fine. And there's a lot of play around. Having some dumbass transport just slam 15 points in the middle of the board every turn is just so fucking obnoxious. I like the idea of the secondary. It's cool that it's like you can be in your the opponent's DZ or in the middle of the board, which is kind of cool. It's like flexible and you can score in a lot of different ways, especially with the new prevalence of like all the diagonal deployments. But with how easy it is to score, I can't put this above B tier. It's just too obnoxious right now.
I never thought I'd say this, but I'm kind of with Steve here. If deploy were wholly within, I wouldn't mind it at all.
Yeah.
It's the rhino that goes and toes into your DZ and scores 4, and you're like, all right.
Sick, dude. Cool, dude. You got me. Car.
Yeah. Damn.
I'm gonna put this in the bottom of B tier.
By the tip of its tusks.
I'm gonna put this in the bottom of B tier.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you missed my joke, but that's okay. All right.
Might get disqualified, dude.
Damn. Let's deflate these a little bit. I think these are a little inflated. Let's drop extend battle lines to D tier.
Sure.
And let's drop like no man's and teleport to C tier.
Oh, not my man, no man's land, dude.
It's an Art of War tier.
Ah, no, I can't stomach that.
You can and you will.
Fuck you. Fuck you, dude.
All right, that feels about right. Can you get the whole thing on screen here for screen grabbings? Yeah, that works. Cool.
Do we like the size of A tier?
A tier is definitely a bit much right now. Let's drop Defense Stronghold.
Defense Stronghold can be... Is it really better than Area Denial? There's no way. Is it better than Engage on all fronts? Oh, come on, man. It's Superland for that.
Yeah, it's probably...
This is... It rewards you appropriately, but, like, it is the most secondary ever. It is worse than Bring It Down. Yeah. I'm dropping that a whole tier, I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's fine. All right.
How do you feel at the ordering of A tier? Decent?
Tempting, Investigate, Storm, Assassinate, Behind, Prisoners. That feels perfect to me.
I agree.
Yeah, cool. All right, sweet. So we've tiered all the things.
We've tiered so many tiers tonight.
So many tiers. If you were trying to listen to this on the audio and not on YouTube, props, honestly.
It's just us rambling.
Yeah. All right. So what do we feel like we've learned here? I feel like
we've learned that there's a lot to like in 10th edition, as much as we bitch and moan about some of the things going on. I feel like one of the biggest areas for growth are some of the fundamentals, right? Like some of the things they introduced, the mission rules and the secondary objectives, didn't really realize it until right now, are pretty damn good. The secondary cards, with a couple of tweaks, they can all be easily in B+ tier, which would be sick. A couple of them are too easy, a couple of them are too stupid. The other ones are all fantastic. There are some primaries and deployment types that need work, in my opinion. We no need to like beat that dead horse again. You can go back and re-listen to those if you missed us talking about those. But there are some of the primaries, especially Dawn of War, Corners, and then those are the deployments. And then for primaries, things like Sites of Power, Servo Skulls, what else was in D-tier? Prio Targets, Purge the Foe, are all just like nice, good in principle, but need to be played on more deployment types, or just need a little bit of reworking to be really, really good. So there's a lot to like.
It's funny. Initially, when they were like, "Hey, here's the recommended missions," there's 15 of them. I was like, "Whoa, that is so many." That is so because we were playing 9. I think there should be significantly more. Um, I think there should be probably upwards of 30.
I think there should be
Honestly,
between 20 and 30, but I feel like they shouldn't be that different from one another. Right now, you
yeah.
roll a random one on the Warhammer Battles app, and you're like, "Whoa, we're playing Dawn of War, uh,
Chosen Battlefield.
Chosen Battlefield, what am I, Servo Skulls? Like, this is a mission that they recommend? What the fuck?"
Yeah,
Like, just absolutely stupid shit. And then later on, you hit the randomizer button again. It's like, yeah, Crucible of Battle taking hold. One of the best staple missions out there. Was
that's
going to
not a
be
recommended mission.
really
We play this all the time. It's not one of the recommendeds.
okay. Crucible of Battle, Vital Ground. I know that's one of them, and that
Yeah.
one is excellent. So the dichotomy between they need to be more like Crucible of Battle, Vital Ground, where it's like here's some more stable, nice primaries that you can just
I,
play in a competitive
I
environment.
think instead of saying, "Hey, here's a list," they should be like, "Hey, for Dawn of War, these are the primaries we recommend. For Hammer and Anvil, these are the primaries we recommend, etc." And then
So there's a
each
little
of
bit more
those add a
randomness.
caveat. So it
Sure, I don't trust them to make good decisions on that, though. Do you?
no, I just mean in terms of like because the if you wanted to list 30 in the way that they currently have, it'd be a mess. So I would
Sure,
reorganize it to instead of saying here's 30, I would say here are all of the primaries that are good for Dawn of War.
sure,
And each of them has an associated rule, just so it's less
sure.
of a mess. I get that
Okay.
they want the letters. Like the letters seem nice, but they could be Dawn of War A through G, Hammer and Anvil A through
I
G.
think the point of the letters was to try to make it easier for people to be like, oh, mission L. I know what that one
Yeah.
is, but I have no idea what the mission letters are because half of them are dog ass, so I didn't bother learning. Instead, I just memorized the deployment names and the primaries like a normal person. I don't know why this was so hard.
I
They were like,
I only know
oh,
one
no one wants to
person.
memorize the names of the missions. What the fuck? There's 9 of them. It's hella easy. 4 or 5 of them are automatic. Like, how do you not know what the
I got
ritual is? How do you not know what sites of power is at this point? How do you not know what priority
bro,
targets is?
bro. How do you not know what grilled cheese is, dude?
No, true. Hot dog, baby. God, fucking damn. I'm getting loony.
Oh
It's almost
man.
11 o'clock.
Yeah, it is. I gotta pack and then drive 10 hours
You have to
tomorrow.
drive to California
Uh,
tomorrow, brother.
it's gonna
Have
be a
fun with
thing.
that.
But yeah. So I would love to see some more missions with some more interesting combinations. Because yeah, I think that's the problem. There's a dichotomy of there's a couple that suck, and when the rules of the ones they made were, hey, we're gonna have like 3 for each deployment, and we're gonna include every primary twice or whatever. Like yeah, some of them are gonna like we don't like them all. So
Yep.
there's going to be issues there. So we need more exploration in the ones that are not in the pack that are using the good pieces. Yeah, the missions are good. They're still good. The specific 15, not ideal. Not ideal. But we got to come up with be willing to try out some more interesting examples and play some more fun special rules. Play more 6 objectives. Play more draw 3, pick 2s. Play some Vox static because it's fun. Yeah.
Draw 3, pick 2.
Yeah.
That's my new vote. That shit's cool.
It's very cool. The game is good. The game continues to be good. The game continues to get better. Looking forward to the next balance slate. Um, Hope that we
Buffs
get some serious updates to these.
Buff CSM. Buff CSM.
No, shut up. I hope that we get some serious updates to these in the net, like with a new pack in sometime in the spring. Not in any kind of rush on them. The thing is fine. I think it's more on TOs than it is on GW to make events more interesting. Obviously, I'd love GW to do it, but it's not pressing right now. We've got bigger issues. But yeah, sweet. You want to do a couple plugs before we sign off for the week?
Sure. What am I plugging?
Plug Cascade Clash, dude.
Oh, boys! Cascade Clash! The Aegis Games boys are putting on a sick major
Yeah,
in
3-day major, baby.
a 3-day major in early March. That's going to be up in the Bellingham area. So if you're I always say if you're in the Northwest. So if you're in the Northwest, you should certainly come. And even if you're going to be traveling, you should also consider coming because it's going to be a great event put on by great people, and you're going to get to see all of us there. So there's that. There's also going to be Rosehammer. So if you're going to want to see me, the returning champion, wear his belt, his champion's belt, which I'm going to be wearing at the event, which is going to be sick. Colton's going to get me that shit.
You got a belt?
I got a champion's belt.
In addition to the baseball trophy?
Yeah, brother.
That's awesome.
So if you want to see me toting my crazy like WWE style champs belt, I've never got it. If he's
around
give
your
it to
ankles.
Me. Exact. Watch yourself, brother. You can come and be a part of Rosehammer 2, which is going to be really fun. That's going to be... it won't be in the Lloyd Center this time. Poggers. It's going to be at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel, whatever the fuck. Which is going to be... Did I actually get that right?
Yeah, you did.
Let's go! So, that's going to be fun. That'll be in the Portland area at the end of March. So 2 big events in March. There's also the Gongai Games, or Gongai something or other event. I'm tired, guys. That's going to be in February. Come to that, too. Come to every Warhammer event. Come to my RTT on Saturday. There's still spots open, you pussies.
Yikes.
Did I do it?
Anyway, I'm going to be in Vegas, so you can say hi to me if you're going to be at LVO. We'll have a good time. Lucas isn't coming because he's a coward and doesn't want to actually win Best Orcs this year, despite the fact that he's currently in first place. Naden's going to snatch it from him, and he's just going to have to live with that reality. Yeah, so we'll have a good time with that. If you like our silly little icons and whatnot, we sell merch over at bestintabletop.com/store. Lucas is wearing his own shirt right now because he's a nerd. Stomp good, baby. Sweet. But, yeah. I think that's what we got. Anyway, we'll be back next week, I think. I don't see why we wouldn't be. Nicholas Olsen Johnson, there's a show next week at the same time it always is now.
Hey, Nick, show up to your show.
Yes, thank you for joining us. With all that being said and done, I've been Tyler.
I'm Lucas.
Oh, yeah, I guess we don't have Nick here for the thing. Anyway, we'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.
I'm Nick!